Here in Siskiyou County. So my name is Crystal Aston, and I am a field coordinator for the Ford Family Foundation. And I'd like to welcome all of you to our first ever, what we're lovingly calling Food for Thought. So hopefully this will be the first in maybe a series of conversations around how Siskiyou County can create stronger networks and relationships for addressing food insecurity and nutrition in our county. And I'd like to introduce some of our working team members that helped make this event possible. So we have Alexandra Rivera and Michelle Harris and Tabitha Ledford and Heather Solis. So they were the ones that really brought some of these issues to the forefront in our county as being really county priorities around food insecurity, and they're the ones that made today possible. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, just track down one of them and they can answer that for you. A couple of housekeeping things. So the restrooms are in the back corner of the building. And the kids are going to be in the lower lodge. You guys probably know where your children are, but they're in the lower lodge, just on the other side of the parking lot. The kids are going to be coming up here to the lawn area for lunch around 11:45. So that'll be a little bit earlier than the rest of us, but feel free to have your kiddos join for lunch if you would like. And you may have seen some of these posters around the room, the white posters. I would encourage you during breaks or during lunch to take a peek at those, because after lunch we're going to be doing some breakout work, and we're going to be asking you to form groups around each of these posters, 3 to maybe 6 or 7 people in a group. So when you have a free moment, take a look and see which one of these talking points speaks to you. So I think that's all I have in the way of announcements. Heather Solis, she's going to share a little bit about what's happening on the tables in front of you with all this food that you're seeing.
All right, so the food on the tables are samples of what we give out for a lot of our food programs. You'll be hearing about the food programs later on, so I won't go into it. But the produce is from farmers market, and some of it's from the grocery store. And we have samples of stuff that we get from our EFAT boxes, which is commodities, and various other programs. So.
And I think, Heather, everyone is welcome to take home the food at the end of the day. So you can walk around, do a little grocery shopping, and it's all that we have. There's all the food insecurity starting today. So you'll see that there's some grocery bags, so you can load that. And so everyone should have all the program materials that you'll need for today inside your folders. You'll see a schedule of what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to have a guest speaker, and you guys will have a chance to have a great tour of the tables that are around the room and load up on some outreach materials. And then we'll have lunch. We have Rico's taco truck that will be pulling up front. That is the plan. And on your way out the door, we'll hand you a raffle ticket to present to get your lunch. So be sure to grab one of those from the table on your way out. And then after lunch, we're going to do the hard work of really visioning and planning and networking and talking about some systems. So that is the plan for today. And then at 3 o'clock, we're going to shift gears into really a celebration and a reflection time where we want to just get to know each other as people, hang out. We're going to have sound advice performing up on the stage. We're going to have some ice cream. At lunch, if you want to text your friends and family to come down after 3 o'clock and join the party, you're welcome to do that. It'll be a really good time. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. This is Sue Sigler. She is the Executive Director for the California Association of Food Banks, and she's going to be sharing with us today some of the trends and innovations that she's seen in the field. So, please join me in welcoming Sue.
Good morning. And I want to say thank you to
Crystal and the Ford Family Foundation for having me here today. As she mentioned, I'm the Executive Director for the California Association of Food Banks, and California is a lot of territory to cover, so I'm delighted to be with you in this part of the world. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what CAFB does to start off. We represent 41 food banks from every part of California, and we have a saying that when you've seen one food bank, you've seen one food bank, because challenges and resources in every community around California are different, and the ways that communities need to be served are very different. And so in California, in the large urban areas on the coast, we see some of the largest and most sophisticated food banks in the country, all the way down to some counties that might have an all-volunteer staff and distribute commodities out of somebody's garage. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. The services that we provide are, our largest program is called Farm to Family, and we are the largest farm recovery program in the country. We work with big ag and ag interests to source fresh fruits and vegetables for food banks and food programs in California and around the country. And this past year, we did over 162 million pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables. And that means that the nutritional profile for people in California who rely upon food assistance is better than any place else in the country, and we're very proud of that. We have a long way to go still, but that's something for us to be proud of. And then we also provide low-cost protein and canned goods to our member food banks as well. One of the other biggest pieces of work that we do is we're very active in advocacy. We know that we have a social safety net in this country that is supposed to mean that nobody goes hungry, and we know that it doesn't quite work like that. And so we are very active in Sacramento and Washington around areas that impact food access and issues for people in poverty in general, because we know that the real reason that people are hungry in our country isn't a lack of access to food, it's a lack of access to the pieces of our society that allow you to be self-sufficient with jobs, good education, and those social supports like childcare, healthcare, etc., that allow families to be whole. We also provide a variety of member services. One of those things that we do is we operate a conference in Sacramento every other year. And the reason that I'm mentioning that is because our conference is designed to give a premier experience to folks who wouldn't have the resources to travel to some of the national food conferences. And our next one will be in Sacramento in 2019, and I'll be sure that the information gets up here, because it's very low cost to attend, and we've gotten very good feedback on that. Pardon me. Lastly, I'll mention that we operate the largest CalFresh outreach program in the state. We contract with the state of California to receive federal funds, to support local outreach, and we support 48 different food banks and other nonprofit organizations around the state who are doing CalFresh outreach at over 5,000 sites. And so that's a little bit about us and the work that we do. I'd also like to talk a little bit about food banking, and I know that not everybody here is associated with the food bank, but many folks don't realize that many folks think about food bank as a place that you can go if you're hungry to get a bag of food, and in many cases that's true. But a food bank has a much larger role in the community. A food bank's job is to take a look at the complete needs of the community and to figure out a plan to try to meet those needs. Particularly relying on building the infrastructure that's needed to move food around. And so a lot of folks are very surprised when they go to a food bank and they see that it's a warehouse operation. And for my part, by training, I'm a social worker, and when I came into the food bank world, I was very surprised that I was challenged to work in a different way. There was no holding hands and drying tears. There were trucks and forklifts and delivery schedules and supply chains. And so it's a very different way of looking at the world. And food banking is, I'm fond of saying that food banking is not a very old industry. In prior lives, I've worked with a number of nonprofit organizations, and in particular YMCAs and YWCAs, and those organizations have been around for about 175 years.
And so they've had a long time to figure out their service model. Food banks, food banks are kind of starting primarily in the early 70s, either in Phoenix, Arizona, or in Santa Cruz County, depending on where you look at the roots of two different types of models that came up to support modern food banking and were soon replicated around the country. And when we started out in food banking, their model, the thought was, there's people who are hungry, there's excess food in the community, and if we can redirect some of that to where it's needed, we can provide good service. So for about the first 20 years in food banking, folks relied on what was donated to them and redistributed it. There's a couple of issues there, which is that primarily being that you don't have control over nutritional profile. And so we don't want to give folks, consistently just leftover baked goods or dented cans. We are learning more and more about nutrition and the role of nutrition in health all the time. Particularly over the last 10 years, there's been so much information that we didn't have in the past that stresses not only the importance of a healthy diet, but of a varied diet, and the role in preventing disease and helping people to stay healthy, helping children to grow, et cetera, et cetera. And so food bankers were challenged to alter their model in about the late 90s. And what was happening then was twofold. One was that food banks relied on donations primarily from grocers to be able to distribute. And like if you were around then, you would have seen what we call scratch and dent products. So cans that had a little dent on them, and the labels were upside down. And those products nowadays primarily go to secondary markets in dollar stores and overseas. So food banks said, oh my gosh, we're not getting those. Also, food banks got overstocks. So just when the retailer had too much of a given product, well, now we all have a code card when we go to the grocery store, right? And that allows those grocery retailers to know exactly what people are buying and when, and overstocks are a thing of the past. And so food bankers were in crisis and saying our traditional sources of food are drying up, and we had to look around and say where else in the community are we going to be able to get food? And until that time, handling fresh food, despite its value for health and diet, I think we've all been affected a little bit by the smoke, right? Last night had itchy eyes. And so food bankers looked around and said, California has half of the agriculture in the country. But until then, handling fresh food was too hard, it was too expensive. We focused on what we called shelf-stable products, things that we could put in a warehouse that would still be good weeks and months from now. And so there was a wonderful gentleman named Barry Maxworthy who was a volunteer with the San Francisco Marin Food Bank and retired from the food industry and said, why don't you go talk to some farmers and see if they'll give us some food. And in the first year, we found about 7 million pounds, which exceeded everyone's wildest dreams. And compare that today, we're doing well over 20 times that annually. And so we rely a lot on the generosity of farmers, but we also have to be smart in the ways that we are constructing food programs. And so in 2012, we had a bill introduced into the legislature in Sacramento to create a tax credit for folks who are donating fresh produce to food banks. And that's an example of a tool that can be used in the public policy arena to really make a difference on the ground. Today, farmers who are donating their product to food banks or other food assistance programs are eligible for that state tax credit. They're also eligible for the federal deduction on their taxes. And in our program model, we pay a couple of cents per pound to cover the cost not of growing or producing the product, but of getting it out of the field, the labor to harvest, or the packing materials. And farmers can combine those three things together and it becomes more lucrative to donate their excess produce than it is to sell in the secondary markets, which would be things like animal feed or juicing or processing food. And so I just wanted to give a little overview about where we've been and where we've come. And Along the way, there have been a lot of creative strategies that have been developed. Pardon me. It was about 2 years ago. I was delighted to be invited here because I learned so much when I get to visit new communities. And because we have a particular interest right now in what we call our rural and remote areas in California. There's very particular challenges. And this started out in my world as our rural and remote members were saying, we can't get the same access to fresh produce that our colleagues do in rural areas. And the real barrier to that is transportation cost. And as we looked at it, we said, wow, these communities really have a triple whammy. There's a high need, there's a low resource, but often a dearth of institutional funders don't have the same basic foundations and companies to turn to for donations and grant support. And there's not an opportunity to scale up. The population doesn't support that, and so there's not the efficiencies that can be gained. It costs more per capita to serve people when you have to transport smaller amounts of food over large distances, and that's just the reality. And we said, what are we going to do about that? So my board very generously committed funds out of our own reserves to do a study, and we engaged the Nutrition Policy Institute at UC Berkeley, who went around and visited 15 rural and remote food banks to learn about them and to find out what their challenges are. And it supported one of our primary missions, which is, like I said, when you've seen one food bank, you've seen one food bank, because everybody has unique advantages and challenges in their own communities and different ways of doing things. And I was just really blown away by some of the creativity that I saw and some of the dedication that I saw, because as I mentioned earlier, I saw programs that had no paid staff. And folks, I saw an 83-year-old woman who drives a truck from Lake County down to Fairfield once a week to pick up food as a volunteer. Amazing stuff. And we were really surprised at the results of that study, because when we asked people primarily what did they need, we expected the standard answer that I get when I talk to food programs about what do you need. It's usually food and funds, food and funds. And they said, we need more help understanding what other people are doing. We need to be better networked. We need opportunities to come together with our colleagues and peers and to learn from one another, and opportunities to go and visit other programs and other larger food banks to see how did they grow and how did they change their operation models and who's doing really creative stuff. And so that is what we're working on now, is creating some of those opportunities with the focus on building capacity in those rural and remote communities. One of the ways that we did that also is we had great legislative success, or actually budgetary success in California this past year. Up until 2 years ago, California was the only large state in the country that did not provide any food purchase dollars out of the budget. And we compare that to some other places where the states are much smaller, that might be providing as much as $17 per person per year. And if you think about California's population, that would be an enormous amount of money. And so, during the recession, we started lobbying. We started lobbying in California. The budget was a mess. We weren't going to be successful during that time, but public policy work is a long-term game. You start having that conversation and start putting forth your initiatives, and in time, hopefully, you're successful. And 2 years ago, we won our first ever state funding in the amount of $2 million, and that was a great success for us. But $2 million does not go very hard in California. You think about that being divvied up among 58 different counties. And so we persisted. And this past year, in the state fiscal year beginning July 1, we won, this fiscal year, we have $8 million to distribute, and about 40,000 of them is coming here to Siskiyou County. And so we're really proud of that, but it's not enough. We estimate that if we were to look at food delivery as the only model of alleviating hunger in California, it would take about $300 to $500 million per year to be able to do that. That's not necessarily the best way to solve the hunger problem, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we will continue to advocate, and we will continue to elevate this issue and look for creative ways and strategies to be able to address our issues, because we believe, as I'm sure that you do, that no one deserves to go hungry. And so I want to come back now to some of the creative strategies that I mentioned that we talked about. When we started doing this study, it's easy for outsiders and those of us who live in big urban areas with lots of resources to sort of look at our neighbors and look at what's wrong or what they don't have. And my direction to our team was, I want a strengths-based assessment, because there are things that you can do in rural and remote areas that you can't in larger urban areas, and there is really amazing stuff going on there, and I want to elevate some of that. And so what we saw was folks who had experimented with how do you reach people who really are distant, that don't have transportation, maybe homebound, etc. We saw people experimenting with FedExing food, forming a partnership with UPS or FedEx to get a box of food to those people on a regular basis. I call that getting someone else to pay for the transportation. We saw people, many folks now are embracing models like school pantries, right? So accessing people where they already go, and I know Great Northern now has, I learned last night, has 6 school pantries, and aspirations in the next year to double that number, and that's a really great model. The folks in Calaveras County only have one full-service food retailer, only one large grocery store in the whole county. And so they said there's got to be a better way to do this, and to really connect people with who truly don't have access to even a retailer if they have the funds to be able to purchase. And they said, you know, one of the advantages of being a sparsely populated area is we know everybody. And so they went out and they made a plan and went out and located every single food insecure person in their county and made a plan for how to serve that person in a way that worked for that individual or that family. They're still working to getting there to providing all of that service, but I said that as an example of one of the advantages of living in this with a lower population. I said a moment ago that food delivery is not, food provision is not the only way to solve the problem of hunger. In fact, it's the most expensive and inefficient way to solve that problem. It's the way that we have, and it's the way that we work, and we're all deeply committed to that until there is a better way. I was looking through the folder that's on the tables this morning, and I don't want to steal the thunder from any speakers who might come after me, but I was delighted to see the information on CalFresh. And, pardon me, I mentioned a moment ago that we are the largest contractor of the state for CalFresh outreach and enrollment. We touch over 120,000 households every year. And there's a problem in California. I saw in the packet a slide that said California is third to last in the country for participation in the CalFresh program among people who are eligible. And believe it or not, I'm actually kind of proud of that. And the reason for that is that we started a piece of work about 6 years ago that called the Alliance to Transform CalFresh. And at that time, California had been sitting dead last in the country for about 2 decades for participation among people who were eligible. It was 49%. And so we called together the food advocacy organizations in California who had all been working on this for 2 decades, but not very well together. And we said, we're never going to be able to change this if we don't start working together. And the work that had been done is oftentimes it requires legislative solutions. It requires, and so bills are being passed every year that tweak the program a little bit, helps a handful of people, but nowhere near the vast majority of people. We'd all been doing outreach for a long, long time. But the reason we have low participation in California is not due to a lack of outreach. It's not due to people generally not knowing about the program. If you work with low-income people, you know that folks talk to one another. They share resources. They share information. That I've been in communities where how do we get the word out? It's like we've got to hit the streets and talk to people because they may not trust the print information or the media that we put out. It has to come from somebody they know, and preferably somebody they know who is accessing and using the program. But the real reason that we had such low participation in California is twofold. One, we admitted, or actually threefold. One, admittedly, we have a big challenge with a large undocumented population who's not necessarily eligible for the program. But may have individual household members may be eligible, but people are scared, right? And in no time in our history have they been more scared than they are right now. One of the great tragedies that I saw following our election in November was people who are legally entitled to access that program. About a week later, I started getting calls from my member food banks who said, I'm getting calls from people who are eligible for this benefit, who are receiving this benefit, and are asking, how do I get off of it? Because they're so scared for people in their household who are undocumented. And that to me is a great tragedy. And I want to come back to that in a moment as well, because it's part of my commitment to making sure that everybody has an understanding about how to work with folks who are scared to access food resources. The second reason is that we have something called cash out in our state, which means that folks who receive SSI, supplemental security income, which is for elderly and disabled as their primary means of income support, are categorically ineligible for the benefit. How that came about is many years ago, California recognized in more prosperous times when the budget was good, when higher education was still free in California, people recognized that that the federal minimum benefit was inadequate to buy food in California. We just had a higher cost of living than other places in the country, and so California was supplemented that benefit with state funds. It is, for most elderly people who are going to access the program on SSI, the benefit is fairly low. Less than, the benefit they're going to be eligible for is fairly low, less than $50 a month probably. The cost of administering that case for the state per month is higher than that. And so the state in its wisdom said we'd rather give people cash than pay more to administer the program than this to the benefits, and that made perfect sense. But what happened over the years is not only did the benefit not increase with inflation, but as there were budget crises, it was reduced until during the Great Recession, it was zero. And so now you have folks who are not getting any additional food assistance, who cannot access our social safety net in the way that it's supposed to work. And that's something that we have been extremely active about. It's tough work to do, there are hard solutions. And the reason it hasn't ended is because the way that the regulations work, there are winners and losers. If we were to end cash out, there would be a lot of households that would benefit, but the way the income regulations are counted, there would be some that actually would lose some of their benefits. And so we're working very closely with the State Department of Social Services to try to find a way to eliminate cash out that does not eliminate anybody from the program. The third reason that we have such low CalFresh participation is because California is a county-administered system, has a county-administered system. Most states in the country have a state-administered system, so that there's a central authority. And we have strong value in that in California. Our governor believes very strongly in home rule and providing services at the lowest level of government possible. But what that means is that we have essentially 58 different ways of doing things in California. And those are subject to values and attitudes. We have places in California where people don't like to see people accessing government services, and so that's not encouraged. There are barriers put up. We're not taking advantage of large-scale innovations. So, for example, until 2011, you had to go give a fingerprint to Aside from treating people who need food like they're criminals, you've already got to take a day off of work to go down to the county. There was no place in California at that time that had an outstanding customer service experience at a county office. And now you got to take another day. Anybody love going to the DMV? Right? Now you got to take another day off work to go down to the DMV. And you might have to take a third day off of work to go back to the county office for a face-to-face interview. And so, but there are innovations that are happening. The fingerprint, the argument was that that's a way to prevent fraud and abuse in the program. Well, guess what? A lot's happened over the years. We have the technology. Data matching is now actually the best way to prevent fraud and abuse. And I can't fail to say that the SNAP, we speak of CalFresh in California, but it's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program on a national basis. And SNAP is the most efficient government program. It's more efficient than the military, it's more efficient than Social Security. The incidents of fraud, waste, and abuse are less than 2% right now. And you won't find any other federal program that can claim that. So we're kind of worried about something that doesn't really exist. Nonetheless, we've moved on from there. The other thing, this gets inordinately complicated very quickly. But we don't even have, I'll stay very high level and say we don't even have one computer system in the state. And so your experience is going to be very different. We have a very difficult time getting data to inform the way that we administer the program. But I want to say also that we've made tremendous progress over the last 6 years, and particularly through the Alliance to Transform CalFresh. 6 years ago, the state didn't even, the Department of Social Services didn't even have adequate staffing to be able to start to consider something. We were asking a lot of questions. They say, we don't know, we don't have a way to find out. So in our partnership, we work a lot with data because there's so much that you can look at and tell a story. And I'll give you an example. One of the data points that we look at is called churn. Anybody familiar with that term? I see a couple of people. Churn is what happens when you lose your benefit only to reapply 30, 60, 90 days later. Clearly, that family or that individual did not intend to fall off the program. Well, why did they fall off the program? They might have gotten a notice that it was time to come in and refresh their application that arrived after the appointment date that they were given, or in the wrong language, or those sorts of things. So these are administrative problems that can be easily fixed, but they're very widespread in California. And so we also lobbied and won a couple of years ago what we call inter-county transfer. Up until about 2 years ago, the law said that if you moved across the street, but the county line happened to run down the middle of your street, you had to close your case in one county and now go through that whole application process in your new county. There should be no reason for that, but we don't have one statewide computer system. And so we have a law passed that said, no, counties have to transfer those cases. Well, guess what? They don't have the ability to do that. And our best advice for people who move across counties is still, you know what, you're entitled to this. By law, you're entitled to this. But you can't get it. If you don't want disruption in your food benefits, please close your case in the old county and open a case in the new county. It's not right, it's not just, and it's not the law, but it's the way to keep from losing your food benefits. So fast forward a little bit and say today, our participation rate after 6 years of this work is hovering now, depending on what measure you use, somewhere between 68 and 69%. And when you think about our participation in California, or our population in California, that represents hundreds of thousands of people. So we're really proud of that work, but we keep going forward. And part of my message anywhere I go is that if you care about food access, you need to organize and be working with the county as well. We have a whole website about how to do that called transformcalfresh.org. There's a lot of information and resources there. And to be talking with your county administration about how is this program being delivered? What are the data points that show us what's the churn rate? How are we doing with that? How many people are eligible in the county? How many people are accessing the benefit, what is their customer service experience? Do people feel like it's a dignified experience when they come into the county? Are the latest tools being used? We don't have to have a face-to-face interview anymore. You can have a telephone interview. But the county has to have a method of verifying, either voice verification or some other way of knowing that that person on the other end is who they say they are. Are those things being implemented, developed, et cetera, et cetera? Are we asking people to take days off of work to come in when it's not necessary? Is the county processing according to the timeframes that they're supposed to? You may or may not know that if you put in an application for CalFresh benefits, the county is obligated to give you an answer within 30 days. Alameda County recently got sued because no way could they meet that 30-day deadline, and now they're being compelled to do so. And if you have an emergent need for food, they are supposed to get back to you within 3 to 5 days. And because if you're hungry today, you don't need your food 30 days from now. You need it right now. And so asking those questions, how are we doing on those performance measures? You can find out more about the performance measures at transformcalfresh.org. But when I talked about how do we solve hunger, we're always going to need emergency food assistance programs. There are going to be people who fall in hard times and need our help right away, or whose benefits are inadequate to truly meet their needs. But we're supposed to be providing that assistance through our basic social safety net programs. And we're coming up on now, it's time to refresh our farm bill here in the U.S. And Congress is already starting to hold hearings and listening sessions around the country. And in the farm bill is where the SNAP nutrition title is authorized. And and we're hearing a lot of threats to SNAP nationally. We're playing a lot of defense right now. We're hearing about things like block granting the program. Now, I'm going to speak real frankly from my own point of view that it's just a way to limit benefits. It's put forth as a good government and a home rule argument, but what it really means is we want to cap benefits. And this program is designed to expand and contract with economic conditions, right? That the program is designed that when the economy is bad and people are out of work, they can access benefits. We're very concerned that if block granting happens, there's only going to be so many slots per state, or so many dollars per state, and states are going to have to make decisions about do they reduce benefits for everyone, or do they just say only so many people can participate, and if you apply after that, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for you. So that's a real scary threat to me in my world, and so I am always urging everybody to contact your congressional representatives and tell them, don't cut SNAP. It's too important to what happens in our country. And to my point of view, it's incredibly short-sighted. We know that people who have poor nutrition have more illness. We know that the children who have inadequate nutrition have a host of health and other behavioral issues as they grow older. We know that children who have poor nutrition are less likely to be able to be fully realized self-sufficient adults when they reach adulthood. And so that's one of the other places that we engage greatly is around that federal policy. It matters, it impacts us here on the ground, and it's important that we are speaking up and saying that this is really important to us and to the people that we serve, to the health of our communities and to the health of our country. Because the first inklings of SNAP, we are now, by the way, we always say happy birthday SNAP, because it's the 40th year of the program. And, but the programs that preceded that really came out of, and that ultimately became our food stamp program, really came out of World War II. And people had been through periods of deprivation, right? With the war effort going on, what was happening was the recruits were showing up too malnourished to serve. And so that was the first time. And so a lot of folks will say that SNAP is actually important to our national defense because we can't see ourselves fall into that place again should we ever need to call up people to serve in the military. And The other point I want to make about the Farm Bill is that there is a lot of folks are saying, why is this SNAP program that serves primarily urban areas, or the population doesn't serve primarily, it serves everybody, but the vast majority of people who access it are in the urban areas because of the larger population base. Why are we coupling that with the Farm Bill? And with all of the farm programs under the heading of the Farm Bill, why that doesn't make sense. And so it's another proposal in Washington is to decouple these two programs, and it's very important to me that that doesn't happen. And the reason these two programs were joined under the heading of the Farm Bill is because that happened at a time when rural populations were beginning to decline in America. Young people were leaving rural areas, leaving farming as, leaving family farming and generational farming as their career choice and moving to the cities. And what was happening was the farmers were afraid nobody cared about what was happening in their communities. So it was originally the farm organizations that wanted to couple with the SNAP program, which everybody cared about. And so I think I think a lot of times when I travel, I hear those questions. Why are these two things together? It's important to know there's a historical reason. And what I really love about that is it shows that, we all need to band together to be able to address these issues. Our farming issues are deeply important. We have to be able to feed our country. Nowhere else in the country is that more important than California. But we also have to be able to feed our people. Those things, two things travel hand in hand. And so once again, if you ever like to call your congressional representative, the message is don't cut SNAP and keep it in the Farm Bill. Don't let those two things be separated. I also promised to talk some more about programs and innovations that we're seeing in local food service delivery. And I was delighted when I was looking at some of the services that are being provided here in Siskiyou County to see that there's a real good job being done. We have things like mobile pantries. So we learned a long time ago that people can't always come to a central distribution point for food, and that it's best to take food to where people can access it easily, particularly fresh produce. Love to see that flowing. I love when I see on Radio and their services information about tailgate distribution. This was something that was developed in the city of San Francisco, actually, originally, and I am somebody who always giggles when I see fancy names for simple concepts. So a tailgate distribution means we're going to eliminate all the barriers to distributing by driving the truck up, dropping the tailgate, and start passing the food off the back of the truck. And that's a real efficient way to get things going. We're seeing school programs, either backpack programs to send food home with young people over the weekend, or school pantries. Again, delighted to see that happening here in Siskiyou County. A great way to access families and to help them find food where they already go. And I know I'm supposed to leave time for questions, and you might be able to tell I really don't like to talk about these things. And I could go on all day, but I'm going to stop there and take a deep breath and sip tea and ask if anybody has comments or questions.
I just have a question about,
Yeah, hey.
The Farm Bill and SNAP are under the USDA as well as school nutrition.
So the question was, is the Farm Bill and SNAP under the USDA as well as school nutrition? So the Farm Bill is actually an act of Congress. So the Farm Bill is the bill that gets passed in Congress. If you know how that works, the House is going to pass one version, and the Senate is going to pass another version, and then it's going to come to Congress committee and decide how that works, and then it's going to go to the President's desk for signature to be enacted into law. SNAP is administered under the USDA, along with all of the programs that are authorized through the Farm Bill are all administered under the USDA. School nutrition, some of those programs come from USDA, some of them come from the Department of Ed. And I'm glad you asked about school nutrition because that's another tool that is available to communities. What would happen if every child who registered for school automatically got an application for SNAP in that packet? And there are a lot of tools that communities can use to feed more people feed more children through the school system. One of those is called community eligibility. If your population in poverty in a given school district or a school or the area that the school serves meets a certain threshold, you can just say all of the kids are eligible for free lunch. If you don't have school breakfast is important too. So advocating for schools to adopt school breakfast programs are really important. There are a lot of tools that the schools can use to really increase child nutrition outcomes.
Just here for Siskiyou County, that our CalFresh office has partnered with a couple of the school districts to reach out. So I live in Scott Valley, but it's not universal throughout the county. How it was determined, I don't know, but that could definitely be, I think, a follow-up conversation with them, because that is on their radar, one thing, or at least our CalFresh office.
And I also have to underscore that when we think of nutrition for young people, we certainly, I usually think first of elementary age children or 0 to 5. Don't forget the teens, and don't forget people in secondary education. That there's huge push right now for college coaches. You know, when I went to college, we all knew people who were really struggling financially and who didn't get to eat, and quite frankly, that was a joke. That was funny. It's not funny. We see that particularly, Merced County, if you see Merced, has the highest population of student hunger in California. Well over 50% of those students are attending classes without to eat, and many of them are first-generation college goers. Many of them come from immigrant households who have pooled all their resources to be able to send somebody to college who don't have anything more to support them. So look at your education system from every level. It's important.
Speaking of what you just mentioned,
Okay.
but speaking of what you just mentioned, UC Berkeley has such a big problem. They created a food bank on campus.
That's right. Yeah, so food banks and pantries are being created right on campus. The UC system a couple of years ago gave every campus $75,000 to create food pantries or food programs to support their students. And I just saw a list of all of them. 6 years ago, we didn't have this, and it's amazing to me to see that we now have close to 3 dozen pantries on four-year college campuses and on junior college campuses too.
Yes, I probably don't need one of those either. Jeff Capps, I'm from Dunsmere High School. We've been on CEP for, this is our 3rd year. So all of our children, there's no charge for any meals. We serve 3 meals before noon every day. So it's a wonderful program. We're working to try to find some more schools that would like to jump on the boat, and I would definitely recommend being able to do that. Most of our numbers in the county all warrant people going on the community program, so it's been wonderful.
Jeff?
Jeff, yes.
I'm curious, Jeff, how have those programs been received by the faculty and administrators?
It's actually a tool to help keep our students in school. Very basic. All the parents know that all the meals are taken care of. They don't have to have any money out of pocket, and we serve great meals. I teach 6 culinary arts classes. Our students actually prepare all of our meals for our school with myself. So we don't have a cafeteria staff. It's just our students and myself.
That's really awesome. Are you seeing behavioral changes in the students?
Behavioral changes, yes. Also, grades go up. The students show up in the morning. They don't miss first period. They want to come in and have breakfast. So there's a lot of benefits to many different angles. We also help the kids in the afternoon, because of course afternoon till 4 o'clock when sports starts, that's a long period of nothing in their stomachs. So we do little snacks. I always have fresh food out the entire day. There's always apples, oranges, bananas out. So we do a lot of different things at our little.
Good job.
Following up on the Dunsmuir, at the earlier part of the experience, the Rotary Club in Dunsmuir just started a backpack program last year, and they started it off with kind of a limited number, but we're up to 26 kids now. So in the elementary school, so before they get to high school, they've got 8 years of having us help, so that was done by the Rotary Club.
Good job. I want to talk for a moment about backpack programs because I love that, because I think it's fabulous. I want us also to remember when we talk about children, that children don't need help. Children need help. And I've taken some of my own food bankers to task at times where it's like, look, we have this great backpack and this kid's going to eat all of it. I'm like, that food's going to be shared by the whole family right away. Because imagine, you had multiple children, one came home with a backpack. Right? We have family values, we share, right? And we don't let somebody eat and somebody else doesn't. So please remember the whole family when we're planning backpack programs.
I'm curious if you have data on the statewide participation of seniors in the food bank programs, and have there been any kind of successful outreach programs specifically to seniors to get them to participate more, to reduce that stigma?
Right, there is a stigma. So I don't have a statewide number, but what I can tell you is from our individual food banks perspective. Some of our food banks report that as much as 50% of the people in their own lives are seniors, and particularly those who are on SSI who don't have access to other food benefits. Your county can send out a letter to seniors who are, they have the ability to sort through data and say, who are those seniors that are potentially eligible? And to send them a letter to say, you might want to think about putting in an application. That's a great way to outreach. I probably can tell you things that you've already know, like being in senior centers and other places they could go. Churches and communities of faith are also a really great place to go. And I've also seen other models, that one of the models that I've looked up is in Spanish-speaking communities in Santa Cruz County. It's called the Promotora model. And what they did was they said, we want to find the natural community leaders. You know, there's always one mom on every block, right? who is taking care of the whole neighborhood and a natural community leader. And they went out for a survey, recruited about a dozen of those folks, and they put them through a training program in nutrition. And the incentive to come each week was you got a bag of food to take home with you. And the cool thing that happened was they had a little graduation and gave people a certificate at the end of 12 weeks of training. These are folks, many of whom didn't graduate high school, never had a certificate or anything like this. It's a heartwarming thing we've never seen, to see people so proud of the certificate that somebody printed out on their computer, right? They now have 200 promotors in Santa Cruz County. And they not only are in the neighborhoods, they actually go into the fields where people are working on their breaks and provide nutrition education. So going to where people naturally gather and going to them individually, it's a costly way of doing things going individually, but our advice is always to look at all of the different systems that are available. So what is the government system? Where do people go? And where do we have to reach out to people individually? If you look at what CalFresh County did, they parsed things like that to say, okay, here's this person who lives on this road, with a half-mile driveway. We're not getting to that person in any kind of way. So that's my thoughts.
I'm curious to go back to something you talked about for reaching rural and remote food insecure people, and the concept of FedExing or mailing things to the Postal Service. Is a large-scale program like that something that could be negotiated at the state level with shippers?
It's possible. We have not taken that on as a priority, and it may come out of the rural and remote work that we're doing right now. It hasn't been lifted up yet. as a strategy, but we're still very early in that year. I can tell you they're doing it in North Dakota. If you think of like the Badlands, if we think we're sparsely populated, go to North Dakota. And so there are successful models out there to be replicated. And what we're finding also is that it all starts somewhere. It's we can do it doing it on a state level in a state decided California. If somebody tells me to really do this, I'll do it. But that's a long way to go. But starting someplace and with people that you know in your community that might be operating a distribution center or what have you, I would say you're going to stand to possibly get results much faster.
Hi, I'm Anna Daniel. I'm a recipient of the food bank work. I just want to thank you for all the great stuff that you've done. I'm a disabled senior. I'm one of those people that have kind of fallen through the SNAP program benefits. So the food bank has been just an invaluable resource in my quality of life. Thank you for all your work.
Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you for being here today. I mentioned it's a site program a moment ago, and we are advocating very hard. We co-facilitate a coalition on CA for SSI. So it's Coalition of Advocacy Organizations. And last year we won an increase in the SSI rate that amounted to $4 per person. $4 per person on SSI in California is a lot of money out of the state budget. Doesn't do a lot for the individual, but we are continuing to fight there and continuing to elevate that issue and continuing to try to figure out how to solve this problem because it's not right.
One more question. You kind of mentioned that you said contact our local congressman. On one of your websites, you have talking points, because I would say, I like to talk to you, but I am intimidated, even sometimes going to like our mayor. Do you have like a toolkit or anything? Like, how do we talk to our board of supervisors, our, I would say, local government and to our state governments? Do you have stuff that we can be armed with?
There are actually a lot of resources out there, so I invite you to our website, which is cafoodbanks.org, and you'll find a lot of policy information. And what I would tell you is, by the time you've done this twice, you're going to be intimidated. Those folks work for you. You elected them. They're very conscious of that. I can go and talk to congressional representatives, and they listen to me this much. They listen to a constituent from their district this much. And what you can expect when you call their offices, you're not going to get a congressman or woman on the phone. They're counting. They're counting calls. This is what I heard recently in Washington. Now to make social media. If there are 30 or more tweets on a subject, it gets on the agenda. And when there's a proposal in front of Congress, and there's a bill that they're debating, they literally count yeses and noes. And so here's what's most effective in the chain of things. Faxes, they don't like faxes, so because they pay for and stuff like that. But faxes come in, they put them in the stack. Emails come in, they count them. Phone calls come in, they count them. So phone call, most effective because you took your time to do that. So that says to them, email, we can all shoot off an email in 30 seconds, right? But if you took your time to call them, and you're going to be talking to a staffer, and all you have to say is, my name is so-and-so, I live in this place, and this is what's important to me and what I want my representative to do. And so you can try that with SNAP. There doesn't even have to be a current initiative happening. And you can call up your representative and leave a voicemail. That's cool too. And to say, I'm really concerned about the SNAP program, and I want you to make sure that it doesn't get decoupled from the Farm Bill, and that it doesn't get cut, and that it doesn't get blocked. And it's super simple. Your county board of supervisors are going to have, you do have that opportunity to talk face to face. You don't have to have the answers. you can say that this is a concern to me, but are you doing it? Are you aware of the things that you can do about it? All right. Well, I want to thank you all very much for having me with you here in this beautiful perfect world, and thank you to Crystal and the foundation, and to all of you who are taking your Saturday to be here to talk about this topic. And I wish you my continuing the best in the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue, for the valuable information you've shared with us today. We're going to go on a quick break, and we'll reconvene in 10 minutes, where we'll be introducing the panel. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to introduce today's panelists. So the first speaker for today is Christy Apodaca, and she is a medical staff manager and physician recruitment at Fairchild Medical Center. We next are going to have Denise Spade, who is with the Siskiyou Food Assistance Program. Following Denise, we will have Michelle Harris, who is a nutrition educator and for the Center of Healthy Communities at Siskiyou. And we're going to have Heather Solis, Director of Community Services at Great Northern Services, followed by Barbara Estrada, who is a retired public health nutrition consultant for the California Department of Aging. And lastly, we are going to have Bruce Deutsch. And Bruce is our council member, vice mayor of the city of Dennismere. We're going to have them all speak, and if you can please hold your questions for the end, we would appreciate it. And now I'm going to hand over the floor to Christy Apodaca. Thank you.
We're having technical difficulties. I have some handouts over there. This is okay as far as where I stand.
Alex, give her your mic.
There you go. All right, can everyone hear me now? Right. My name is Christy Apodaca, and I work at the hospital at Fairchild Medical Center. And the way I got involved in this panel here and being able to be part of CMAC is that our hospital did a community needs assessment. It's required by law that we do it, and so in October of 2016, we went ahead and did a community needs assessment. And the top two that came out of that is we need to improve access to health care in northern Siskiyou County, and I'm sure it's the same here in southern Siskiyou County. And then the second was nutritional education. So as part of that process, my CEO has asked me to help him with this project, and we worked with Michelle Harris to kind of understand what our true community need was for nutritional education. And we learned that it was food insecurity.
And that was a huge issue. So we decided what we could do as an organization is we could target our patients we had coming through our clinic. And so we took our nurses and we had them ask 2 questions for intake. I'm going to have to refer to the language here because I don't know it off the top of my head. But the 2 questions that we decided that we would ask our patients, the recommendation from Michelle was, number 1, here, within the past 12 months, were you worried of whether you would, let me try again. Within the last 12 months, were you worried whether your food would run out before you received money to buy more? And so we asked 704 patients, and 606 of them said, no, never true. 66 of them said sometimes true, and then 32 of them said often. The second question that we started to ask them is, within the last 12 months, have you worried that your food you bought would last and that you wouldn't have enough money to get any more? And in that question, we had, again, 704 same patients asked. 615 said no, never. 26 of them said true, sometimes, and then 63 of them said often. So with that percentage, our next goal is to work with Michelle O'Gorman and the Resource Center and to try and get some more questions designed to get those patients who respond often connected to resources within our county. And we are going to try and see if they're utilizing the services we have in Siskiyou County, if they're receiving commodities, if they have resources to get them to the food banks and whatnot. And then we're hoping from that we can also expand and provide some more service to the community. We talked about commodities and being able to do maybe some education with what comes in the box and have maybe a dietitian or some staff member be able to come and teach them how to make some nutritional meals within those boxes. We've talked about maybe doing food drives within our organization. Our organization, 16 years ago when I started, had less than 160 people, I believe, and now we're up to 515 employees. So we have a large network of employees living in different aspects of our county. We feel like we can make a difference and we can drive up our nutrition-based food bank. So we look forward to engaging with community partners and learning more about what the community needs are and how we can help.
I'm Denise from Siskiyou Food Assistance, and we are located in Reed, but we serve all of South Siskiyou County. So starting at Gazelle, Big Springs, and south through Estelle, actually. And right now we're able to provide 8 emergency food boxes a year with our current funding, which is about a 3-day supply of food. We have a display back there that has one of our pick lists, so people get to choose what they take home with them. And we've had to change that model after looking at another food bank in Fort Jones, which had a great system for that. We also provide fresh produce. We get No. 2 produce from General Produce every week, and we have a dedicated volunteer that picks it up every week for us. And we have some. Last year we did a strategic plan, so we also did a community survey, and I have 5 answers from our clients back there. If you want to look through them about what they see as the most important nutrition needs for them, and fresh produce came out on top with transportation being second. So that's about it.
My name is Heather Solis. I'm with Great Northern Services, and I'm the Community Services Director. We do a number of programs right now. I'm going to focus on what I do in the Community Services Department with food. We have quite a few programs. We do, it's called CSFP. It's a Commodities Supplemental Food Program, and that's designed for seniors. 60 and over, they can get an additional box of food, which is based on nutritional value, as opposed to the commodities. It's not based on nutritional value. It's more has to do with the price. But the senior boxes, we take those to 22 sites throughout the county, and the seniors are eligible to get 1 box each month. And that also comes with milk and a brick of cheese. We also do the commodities, which is also known as EFAC. That's where you can get a box of food, and we take boxes of food to 23 sites throughout the county. And person is eligible for one box every other month. We have to do every other month distributions on that. We do a summer lunch program, so during the summer months, this is last summer, we had 6 sites in the county. We had Dunsmere, McLeod, Mount Shasta, 2 in Lee, and 1 in Montague, where kids under the age of 18 can get a free lunch. We're hoping to expand that program to the rest of the county eventually. We also do school pantries, where I take nutritious snack type items into a few schools. And so teachers have access to that, and the students, and they can get food if they miss breakfast, or if they don't have anything over the weekend, they can take it home with them. We do a holiday backpack program where during extended holiday breaks, kids can sign up and get a backpack or a bag full of food to make meals over the holiday breaks, where they will, not be getting the lunches that the schools provide. We also provide food, emergency food to the county food banks. That includes purchasing a lot of local produce from farmers market or general produce, taking those to the food banks. We can also purchase protein items such as ground beef or chicken or cheese, and we distribute those to the food banks also. We do a holiday basket program where we get funding from the Ford family, and we purchase the main protein for holiday baskets for Christmas and Thanksgiving. So it's either turkey or ham, and then for instances of one family households, we do a whole chicken. We also do in the city of Mount Shasta, a Mount Shasta Fresh program, where I purchase local produce mainly from farmers markets and hand it out to income eligible households, and that is funded from a community development block grant within the city of Mount Shasta. And we also do the tailgate produce giveaways, which we get donations from suppliers down in the valley area, and the Food Link hauls through the produce up to Siskiyou County for us, and we have 4 sites throughout the county that we give out produce once a month during the growing season. So those sites are Wairika, Fort Jones, Weed, and Doris. And so that's a quick run through of the food programs that I do at the moment.
Hi, I'm Margaret Estrada. I'm recently retired State Unit on Aging dietitian. The State Unit on Aging, or the Department of Aging in California, is the agency that provides the administration, evaluation, and monitoring for all of the older Americans Act nutrition programs. The older Americans Act nutrition programs are the congregate program, the group dining program. You're sitting in a group dining hall right now. This is a congregate center. It's a community center for Siskiyou. We also provide the meals through the home delivered meal program. We're all familiar with Meals on Wheels when we call it that. And that's another way that we get meals to seniors who may be not able to, or the homebound, no transportation for these guys, and they're not able to shop, maybe not able to stand and cook by the stove. Most of the time they're isolated. They usually have other issues, chronic disease. They have issues with their teeth. They may be unable to chew food very well. Many times they live alone. They cook for one. We know how hard that is. And let's see if I missed any issues. I want to talk a little bit about the people that are served here in Siskiyou. We know that this county amongst the older adults, 20% of the population are food insecure. It's high in the state of California, where the average food insecurity amongst older adults is around 15 to 16% in other counties. So you're in one of the highest food insecure for older adults counties. I want to emphasize that when we do provide meals for our home delivered meal people, we also provide assessments for them and work with other food programs to ensure that they have food in their cupboards. So often our drivers come back to their centers and say, so-and-so didn't have. I delivered the meal, I put the milk in the refrigerator, and there was no other food in the refrigerator. So it's important that we work with food banks and that we work with CalFresh to provide more food than the one meal that as a senior nutrition program can provide. So these community networks are very important to us. The AAA here, the Planning and Service Area Agency, Planning and Service Area 2 Agency on Aging, provides the information for all the Older Americans Act services for 5 counties, and Siskiyou is one of them. They provide many services other than the nutrition program, but I know this is near and dear to their heart. So they are here to find ways to work with these agencies and provide more food for their participants. This area agency provides for 5 counties, which is a real tough challenge, and these 5 counties are a huge geographic area, so this is that rural challenge done over again. The funding for these programs comes from the Older Americans Act, the federal dollars. It's matched by general fund, state dollars, and it's meant to have community dollars added in. The Older Americans Act funding was never meant to be the sole funding for this program, and it's certainly not able to provide services for all the eligible seniors. The eligible seniors for a congregate are those over 60. And as we see boomers coming into this, we're starting to see congregate sites with waiting lists. Home delivered meal routes, the eligible seniors for those programs are over 60 and homebound. They are homebound based on the activities for daily living that they may not be able to do. Go shopping, stand by the stove to cook. So these programs, the home delivered meal programs, have had waiting lists for years. More money means we can increase the prioritization decrease the prioritization that we base eligibility on. So many programs develop an eligibility, who can come in. The 95-year-old blind woman will be on the top of the list. The 60-year-old disabled person might be lower. It's a difficult eligibility to develop, and we would rather have more money than prioritization. But it's a fact of life. We have prioritization. Many of the programs do things for efficiency, business efficiency, to increase the amount of people that they can serve. So they may have volunteers, they may do more with their food bank to obtain food that they cook. There's a lot of fundraising efforts that you'll frequently find us in your direct mail. So, and of course Congress and state, to get more funding from our government programs. So I think I hit everything for this population, and pass the mic on. Thank you.
Can I stand up? Is that okay? I feel better. I want to see always gotta rock the boat. So I'm Michelle Harris, and I'm going to talk about CalFresh, which you guys already heard about. But I'm going to come at it a little bit different angle. I'm going to talk about kind of how it helps stimulate the economy. Because a lot of when we talk about these programs, money is a huge factor with that. So I actually am here representing, you can go to the next slide, I'm here with a couple different organizations, and for those who know me, my role has changed throughout the years. I'm a dietitian, but today I get to really represent 3 different organizations who I'm very proud to be affiliated with. It's with Siskiyou County Public Health, and we have the SNAP Ed program, which kind of
talk about SNAP, but it's an education program where we talk about nutrition education, promote physical activity, and actually get to partner with a lot of these people, these organizations. And I feel very fortunate. And I have to say, as I'm here today and listening, that they make me be better. Because I hear about these great programs and want to do more. And so I just have to say thank you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. And I'm excited for the future. And then I am actually located down at Chico State. That's where I went to school, at the Center for Healthy Communities. And we have a CalFresh outreach grant. And so some of the stuff that was talked about with the food banks plays in line with one of my coworkers. And then I also get to be here representing First Five, because I work with them, and we have a CalFresh outreach grant here locally, which I'll touch base on in a minute. So we heard about what CalFresh is, and so this will be a little bit of just a review, that it's funding through the Farm Bill. And the goal of CalFresh is to provide eligible households with additional resources to buy food. And the funds come on the EBT card. Raise your hand if you've seen those before, kind of like a debit card. And the crazy thing is, and I think I have it on the next slide, is a lot of funds also come on those EBT cards. And so when we talk about stigma, this is one. If you'll see someone, standing in line in front of you at the grocery store, and they're maybe getting lots of soda, and they're getting lots of maybe even tobacco, and they have their EBT card. And you're thinking, how are they buying food with that? That's our food stamps dollars going down the drain. Where actually, there's a lot of different programs that use that card. And when we talk about stigma, a lot of times those biases are real. And we have a lot of those here in Siskiyou County. And why is CalFresh titled different than SNAP? Have you guys ever wondered that? I always wonder that. Why California always has, So food stamps became SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. In California, because we like to be our individual state, worked really hard, and they came up with CalFresh. But I really like the name, because you got Cal, which represents California, and has fresh. And so what was mentioned is that we produce a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables in our state, right? And so that was the goal for California to really represent California, and that we are hopefully using these CalFresh dollars to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. And then guess what? Support our local farmer, our local grower. And one slide I didn't have a picture up on that slide. I'm also a rancher and a farmer. So when we talk about supporting our ranchers and our farmers locally, that's also very important. Because as businesses, small businesses, we get hit up a lot for donations, right? And guess what? We're struggling as well, because we're not big scale. We're small. And so every dollar counts. Okay? With CalFresh, you can purchase produce, whole grains, lean proteins, and seeds and plants. A lot of people don't realize that you actually can buy seeds at the grocery store to grow your own food. It can't be used to buy ready, hot foods, alcohol, tobacco, medications, or supplements. So there are limitations that, when you're at the grocery store. But what's hard, again, we're promoting fresh fruit, but if your local store, the one that's walking distance from your house, maybe is kind of like your corner store or gas station. How many fruits and vegetables are generally at our gas stations? What's at a gas station most of the time that you can buy for?
Bananas. Old bananas, yeah.
But a lot of times it's kind of our processed foods, right? And so when we think of big scale and health and nutrition, it seems so simple, right? Here's your EBT card and it's money, and you go buy your fresh fruits and vegetables. And what's unique about rural areas is that we may have food at our grocery store, but it is sometimes, not a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. And do we have a very long growing season here? No. So we have unique challenges with that. There was a study that came out in the last, I think, year and a half that looked at the household spending habits of families who were low income that weren't receiving CalFresh. Sorry, thank you. And those receiving CalFresh dollars. And there wasn't a significant difference. Yes, there was some soda, purchased and maybe some foods that we don't consider as healthy, but the difference wasn't huge, which is, again, even more power when we talk about the need for this, is that, again, this is funds for people to be able to buy food. And then the EBT card holds a lot of other food on it, or money, excuse me. Okay, so talking about the economics, is that, it was already mentioned, is that California is kind of on the bottom if you think of participation rates.
and we're kind of slowly getting better. But it's estimated that there's 3 million Californians who are eligible but not participating in the CalFresh program. And again, there's a large variety of reasons of why that's occurring. But when we talk about dollars, that is about $2.5 billion a year that we're not accessing. So I would say, even if we're off about half, I think California would be pretty excited to have another $1 billion circulating in our economy. And we have what we call a multiplier or stimulating effect when we talk about CalFresh, is that we estimate for every CalFresh dollar used or spent at your grocery store, is that it stimulates $1.80 for our economic activity. And how I look at this is that if you have $100 on that EBT card to go buy food, that means I have an extra $100 in my budget to buy something at my local hardware store that's going to be taxed. So it's money coming into California, and then it's money coming into our local county, and then sometimes into our city. So it's just another reason why. Number one, we're finding people are healthier if they are on CalFresh, and then it's bringing money down into your community. I'm almost good. And then, have you guys heard the term food insecure? Is that big? And that's what we're seeing. We're really trying to help improve that number and access to health care. Okay. So if you look at specifically Siskiyou County, and sometimes these numbers are a little bit, a year past. But what we have seen is our number is continuing to go up of the residents who are eligible that are not participating. So the last data that I've seen is over 4,000 of our residents could be participating and are not. And if we go down to that kind of how that stimulates the $1.79 to $1.80, is we're looking at up to $8.2 million that we could possibly have more circulating in our county. And again, even if this was higher, the estimate is that there's still a lot of money being left on the table. Who can receive CalFresh? This is just kind of a list of what we see with misconceptions is a lot of times we think that seniors aren't eligible. There might be reasons why if they're receiving SSI, but college students is another big focus, children's, felons, people with disabilities. It's basically, if you go to the next slide, the biggest thing is it talks about income criteria. And it is in your packet. Each year the income guidelines change based on I would say from the federal government. October 1, we'll have new income guidelines coming down the pipe. And then just talking about CalFresh, so you can always go to your social services or human services department here. Ours is located in Wairika. But we also have a CalFresh outreach grant that we partner with the Family Resource Center. So these two ladies up here, we got Wairika and Dunsmuir, that one of their services that they provide is helping people through the application process. So one thing that was mentioned in this morning's presentation is sometimes, going to the CalFresh office is daunting. It's not always a smooth transition, getting that paperwork. And so the resource centers, one thing that they can do is kind of help through that entire process, and even, reducing that churn rate, helping people get recertified. And then that's my contact information. Okay.
Good morning, my name is Bruce Deutsch. I'm the Vice Mayor of Dunsmuir, and I'm here to talk because of the work that we did this earlier in the year. Back in May, we had a town hall meeting that we put together that was specifically designed to identify the various gaps in our community and to find a way to see if we could address those gaps. The process actually began as a result of the sales tax that came into place. Mike Rodriguez will know about this. Back in November of 2015, a group of people got together to support the library and the Parks and Recreation, needed some updates to the pool. As a result of that passing and the extra increased sales tax, we had to set up a process in the City Council to deal with request for that because of the fact it wasn't a special tax, which meant that we had to put it in the general fund. That turned out to be an opportunity to find out from the community what types of other areas we could support. And it turned out that 3 of the different applications that came in beyond for the library and the park and the pool turned out to deal with hunger. One of them was a program that's very strong in our city throughout the summer, and it's for lunches and dinners. And there's been some kind of an administrative glitch, and so for that particular year, didn't have the money. They asked the city for it, and we were able to support that. We also supported a food bank process, a food bank request for money to support that. We were able to do that also. The third item that came up really didn't have any numbers or much support to it, but it kind of suggested taking a larger, more comprehensive top-down look at hunger in the city. And that became the launching point for us to do what we did. Both Mayor Craig and myself, Bryce Craig and myself, spoke up at the meeting and said we'd like to see if we could do something to identify the different gaps in the program and see what we could do. So I was smart enough to know that you get a hold of the best people to help you. And that started with Alex Rivera from the Community Resource Center, and then also the Rotary Club. Rotary in Dunsmuir is kind of unique because it's a small little group of about 20 or so people that brave the morning Wednesdays to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go down to the elementary school and have a Rotary meeting. In Dunsmuir, Rotary is a group that gets about anything done. If you want to get something done, you turn to the Rotary Club and they'll help you do it. And so what I did was, besides talking with Alex, I also talked with the Rotary Club. We also had a bonus there because one of our members is also the CRC of Weed, Andrea Hare. So we got together, the 3 of us, and we talked about how we would approach this. And so we had identified a group of about a dozen people that came together, various groups of people representing one of the ministers of town, Chris Langston, several members of Rotary, various other people. And with that in mind, moving on to the next slide, we put together, I shouldn't say we put together, Alex put together a list of all the different people in town. I'm not going to expect anyone to read this, and I'm not going to go through it, but there's basically the beginning of an identification of the name of an organization, contact name, contact information, food services, audience, direct and indirect, assistance in direct and indirect, food program, days and hours, and who are the services for. So this was the beginning of the process to identify, another slide, I'll just move it along, there's another list. Again, I'm not expecting anyone to read it, but you can see the work that Alex put into it. Next slide. So that was what started us off. So we got together again, we met a few times, and we said, okay, we'd like to do a town hall. And the town hall that we put together was designed to do 2 things. Designed to get this information out, and then also to get the information back from the group of people that we thought would either be helping and assisting or would be part of the assistance. So working with the City Council and working with the Rotary Club, we put on a town hall on May 9th. Next slide, please. And this is the group that showed up, and I'll go over what we did, but I'll tell you the thing that was most exciting to me was the idea that throughout the hour where we had the discussions on the 3 questions I'll share, there was a constant sense of engagement. I looked around and I don't know if you can tell it from here, there's 3 different groups we had broken up. We had about 33 adults, and we had child care, so we had about a dozen children in the room. I'm saying all this because if you live in a community and you can find a council member or somebody in the community to help you do this, it might be a way to help in your local area. So what we did, next slide please. This is again, I'm not expecting anyone to read, but it's called What's on Your Plate? And that was the name of the town hall. And so it wasn't meant to make anybody feel that if they were coming, they had to say, I'm in need. It was really just kind of an open-ended concept, and we promoted it as best we could. We put it in the paper and did all the other things. And so we came in and we had a dinner, and that was put on by the culinary department at Dunsmuir High School. And then we had an introduction and went over the purpose of the meeting and acknowledged the planning group, had them stand. We had a review of the resources that I just showed you. Alex put that on. Next, please. And then we had breakout group discussions. The 3 discussions, we came up with the 3 questions that we thought would drive the most information flow. Was what are the major problems you have accessing existing community food programs? for example, enrolling in food stamps and WIC, transportation, etc. What suggestions do you have to improve food availability and food programs? For example, more community gardens, help with enrollment, etc. And what are some ideas that can help individuals and families to become food independent? Personal gardens, job skills, training, etc. So we did that, and then we had our breakout sections. Next one, please. And group reports, etc. Next, please. So question one, and I'm not again going to go over each of these. I have them up here, and I guess if you'd like, we can find a way to, Alex, get you that information. But we went through each of the questions, and we came up with a bunch of information for the sake of brevity, because Alex has already given you my hook signal. I won't go into any others. But basically, we had 3 questions. We got all kinds of information. The bottom line that we came out with, I guess we haven't actually had an opportunity because of the summertime to really meet and figure out what we're going to do next. But in terms of our discussions, we're kind of looking at trying to get the same group of people together quarterly and just kind of take what we've got and see where we go from there so we can continue this effort on. The last thing I'll say is the biggest thing in my mind, I'm one of those type of people that likes to have a clear picture and an understanding of the challenges out there. And so I really would like to find some way to come up with a process where we can go out and census and identify people in need, whether they're veterans and whatever it is, and find a way to be more proactive in identifying them instead of reactive. And I'm not sure how that's done. If anyone has any magic on that, that'd be great. But that's what my personal goal is, to find a way to do that. So that's what I have.
Thank you to all the panelists and members. We're going to move into questions now for the next 10 minutes. So any questions or comments about what we've just heard from any of our panelists?
I don't think I need a mic, right?
This is for Michelle. As a service provider for Cross County Senior Lunch Program, we get a lot of questions about CalFresh. Is it welfare? What is the eligibility? Will they find out where I live? And what's the amount do they get normally?
So I don't have, let's see, I think the average, I don't have senior number in my memory bank.
They can get up, one person can get up, I think, up to 180, somewhere in there. And it's all the way down to $12 or $15 at the lower end. And one thing that we like to say, at least Alex and I in our little spiel, is that we'll say we don't look at CalFresh as a handout, it's a handout. Because what we do know is a lot of people who are on CalFresh, it's generally for a certain period of time. So we try to, reduce that stigma. And with seniors, they're like, I've spent 60 years providing for my family, I'm not about to take a handout now. So we spend a lot of time talking about that, and even if it is on the lower end, a lot of times we'll say it rolls over. So if you don't use it 1 month, it's going to just, build. And so we say, go ahead and apply, and even if it is only the 12 or 15, by the end of the year, there's $150. So if you need snow tires for your car, then that way you've got that $150, you can use that to buy your food, and then use the $150 to do maintenance on your car. So it really kind of depends where they fall, and obviously the number of people in the household. And so just one thing with the SSIs also is with seniors, a lot of times that you may have one of them receiving SSI where the money's already rolled in there, but then the spouse isn't. So a lot of times we look at a household in general, and what we're seeing like with the senior population is a lot of them are taking care of their grandkids now. And so a lot of we talk about who's in your household, who's preparing meals with you to apply. And the nice thing is that also if you do apply online, because there is a website, See For Yourself, you can get on there and apply, it actually will ask you a lot of questions and it will see if you're eligible for other programs as well. Do you two have anything else to add?
Do you have any other questions or comments with our panelists?
I came prepared. These are questions that I get with our senior population and our food program. Heather, on the farmer's market, they always ask me a question, how do I know that their produce that I'm buying from them is okay, they pass inspection, will I get sick? So does Great Northern go through a process selecting vendors for farmers market, or you don't do that?
No, we purchase from any of the farmers. All of the farmers at the market are certified.
Certified.
They are, so they go through everything. I don't.
Can you clarify what's their process of getting certified? Would you have to have some type of health inspection, or?
Michelle, do you know?
They don't have to have a health inspection. I mean, it's a form, so a couple of things. I will say our public health or environmental health at Mount Shasta, they're there. Because like when I go under wear my other hat and we want to do a taste testing, that if you're gonna cut out that piece of fruit, you better have access to a hand washing station or a bathroom. And so there is I can't speak to that, I don't know, but our public health is making sure that that is. And coming from as a farmer, I mean, that's generally a priority. With any produce, we're recommending that you wash before you eat, which is hard, because if you're buying produce, you want to eat it, but that's always kind of a general guideline with that. And not all our farmers markets throughout Siskiyou County are certified. It doesn't mean that they are not necessarily good sources. And I haven't heard anything in Siskiyou County of any like outbreaks or anything like that. When you are organic, like if you have a farm that's certified organic, the nice thing is that generally they have safety plans in place because that's part of becoming certified organic. So that is a comforting thought.
One other question. I know that with our senior lunch program, nutrition-wise, we can't accept donations from people that donate apples, peaches, whatever. So we have to be careful. So I don't know if that was the same guideline with you folks.
You can accept donations of apples, peaches, and other fruits and vegetables, but you have to have a policy procedure in place.
Our policy, we can accept it, but we can't use it in our kitchen. If somebody wants to bring us a sack of potatoes, like we get called, when the weigh station gets overloaded, they call me and ask me, hey, can you use an extra pound of this? And we go get it, and we pass it out to the seniors, but cooking with it, we can't use it, right?
You can, if you have a policy and procedure in place. And if there's something that comes up frequently, you can develop that policy and procedure pretty easily. Other agencies do have them. You can get a copy of what's currently out there, and you can use them to cook. But if you don't have one in place, what you're doing to donate, to have it available for the seniors who are at your sites is a perfect solution.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that. As far as people being concerned about what they're getting health-wise, I would be more concerned about going to Ray's or the other stores rather than going to farmers. Because I know farmers put a lot of love and energy into their food, and a lot of food that I know that goes into stores like Ray's, they're probably not as healthy as the ones you're going to get from the farmers.
And I think there was one more complimentary question over here as well.
Thanks, Mike. I always wondered what happened to that 80-pound banana squash that I gave to the senior. Not to mention the 52-pound turkey that went through here. I'm Francis Mangels, and I'm involved in producing community gardens, community sustainability group, Siskiyou 141. Anybody heard of those outfits? There's a bunch of people there from the community sustainability group. Okay, that's nice. But I offer a free garden service to anybody who wants to grow food here. If you can grow a flower garden, what's wrong with sage blooms and it's beautiful, and a little handful like that is worth about $5. I mean, geez. Or a French tarragon. Maybe I say what you paid for that in the store. And like the gentleman over on here says, my goodness, I think my stuff tastes an awful lot better than the stuff down in Ray's. Well, there's nothing like a home garden. So I'll just tell everybody, yes, I've got herb starts, root starts, for all kinds of edible culinary spices. In terms of variety, I've got the largest herb garden on the West Coast. Thank you, Society for Creative Anachronism. And this isn't these goofy Chinese herbs that we see advertised around here. This is real, honest parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, decent stuff to eat. And not to mention I have surplus vegetables, and this, for some reason this year, I've got a lot of zucchini like that one. So you want some of that? Okay. But what I do is it's a free service. I've got free seeds. Some of them are heritage seeds that have been around in the family since 1905. And they are adapted to local mountain conditions, Western Garden Book Zone 1 and 2. So that's all there if you want it. And my question for anyone on the panel, particularly Michelle, and I think Heather as well, and you too, Bruce, for you three, my question is, what are you doing to encourage people growing their own food? You know, even if it's a little 100 plot, 100 square foot plot. I mean, that's a lot of money in just kitchen spices. You know, what are you doing to encourage home gardening, yard gardens, the backyard gardens, the cider press, grapes, plums? What are you doing for the old folks or for ordinary people that want to grow local food? And if we get surpluses, well, it does go there, but keepers.
Let me grab that mic and stick it over there.
Okay, sorry I took so long.
I see Bruce's hand go up and
Well, we had, in Dunsmere, we've had a community garden, and so that's been going on, I think, about 3 or 4 years. The grade school also has a garden where they teach the children at the elementary school how to garden. And in fact, at the program we had for the town hall on hunger, we had one fellow come in and bring in a set of seeds so that they could go in with the kids and teach them about growing. So we are trying to do it. It's just getting started, but that's what we're doing here.
So with the SNAP Ed program in Siskiyou County, gardening is a huge focus, and we also work with the schools, and we partner a lot with the after-school programs. So most of the after-school programs we were partnering with us receive soil and seed and small gardening supplies. So we try, you know, the schools is a great way. My kids, where we live in Fort Jones, they have a great school garden. We actually have a natural habitat grant, and so we have that. And so a lot of what we do isn't necessarily always directly to one person. We try to help at the organization level to kind of create that norm, so they're doing it at school and hopefully doing that at home. But we could probably be doing a better job. But I think you brought up a really good point, is that, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're also here, is that we do have a lot of gardens in places that have surplus. Like we have a new big berry patch, and there's so much we can't get picked. But we don't have time to get out there, nor do we always have the funds to do that. So, you know, gleaning programs and all that, you know, that could be one of the outcomes here today, is how do we, you know, create a system where, you know, connect with the different gardeners, and then it gets to the food bank, where it gets to Heather, and it gets out with the commodities. So you touch on something that I think is something that's doable here in Siskiyou, and we should probably have additional conversations about that.
You know, Reed Elementary School has something called the Green Team, so they are doing a garden outside, as well as one of their classrooms is then converted to a hydroponic garden. Yeah, and so the kids, it started out as a program to help behaviorally challenged kids, and they have found that these kids are doing better in school by just being part of that. They bring them over because right now we're located right across the street from that school, and so they come over and volunteer an hour on Wednesdays when we're there distributing food. So, and then the other issue is not everybody has a plot of soil to garden in. So I know that that's been a big focus, that people want to do that. So.
I forgot to mention when I was presenting, one of the things that we did at the hospital as well is when we identified people with food insecurity, we just didn't want to leave them hanging, they were really a resource center. So I worked with Jerry at Human Services. thank you, I was gonna say it wrong. And took their resource guide that was 16 to 20 pages long and wanted to consolidate it into a brochure. And when we identify patients who need access to food, we give them this brochure and try and connect them. We're going to try and get to that next level. I would please encourage each of you to pick up one of these. Your sources are listed probably in here. If I have information that's wrong, if you have additional information that I could add, my business card's over there. You can email me, call me, or let me know today if you see anything that's wrong in here or anything that needs to be updated. I want to keep this updated as much as possible. That CalFresh information in there when Michelle's talking, I need to update that. The criteria as of October 1st, but we're trying to give them a one-page document that they can look at, reference, and know what resources are in our community to get nutritional support.
Wonderful, thank you to all our panelists. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Okay, so who's hungry? Okay, so just a couple of reminders from what Crystal said earlier. Make sure that you provide the taco truck with your food ticket. And if you're wondering where the food tickets are, where are the food tickets? Are they up front? They're up front, so on your way out, the ladies over there will be handing you a food ticket. Also, feel free to visit with your kids. I just saw a couple of them stream down. They had lunch earlier than us. And feel free to eat either outside or inside. And we highly encourage you to please look at the titles of the posters. As when we return, we're going to be in groups and right after lunch, and you're going to be asked to join and participate depending on what the topic is. And then we'll go from there, and we'll reconvene at 1 o'clock, and then Crystal will go we'll start off with them. Enjoy your lunch, everyone.
Here in the front, and maybe use the next couple of minutes to get to know the folks in your group, and you can use the Ask Me About prompt that everybody has on their lanyards as a prompt to get to know your neighbors a little bit. So let's take about 3 minutes or so to find where you'd like to sit, and then get to know your neighbors and ask them about something they're next to. Thanks. This is the hard work. Now everyone's been fed and happy. Now we're going to put the group to work, and we're going to go through an activity that we're calling Moving an Opportunity Forward. Does everyone remember when they registered for this event, the question that was asked, it was our focus question, and it was, what could a high-functioning network for addressing hunger and nutrition look like here in Siskiyou County in 5 years? And so the responses that we've received from all of you to that question are what we have on these poster boards that are around the room and on your tables. And as you can see, we had a lot of great responses. And I'm going to borrow one of the phrases from our Children, Youth, and Families Department, which is, it might be wrong, it's definitely incomplete. We didn't have enough poster boards for all the responses, but we tried to group the responses that we did have into clusters of responses that kind of seem to make sense. If your group feels that anything on your list doesn't make sense, feel free to pull it off or scratch through it or add something to the poster that you think should be on there. So if everyone, you probably didn't have your folders in front of you, but we're going to be using the sheet that was in your folders as our guide. It's this Moving an Opportunity Forward page. And so these posters have the answers to the first piece of this activity, which was the opportunity, the focus question. So this is where we are on the sheet. All the posters have people's responses to what this new idea could look like if this reality was in place. That's the list on each of the posters. So these are all the responses that you provided. And so we are going to pick up on this activity on the obstacles section, and I'll explain what that means. So here's an example. So this could have been one of the cluster of responses. Children have a taste for healthy foods. This is just an example. And some of the responses could have been things like, kids choose fruit over candy. Probably not mine, but some kids. Kids no longer like soda, etc. So this could be something similar to your poster. And what you guys will be doing in your group is you will be starting by reading through whatever's on your poster, people's responses, and if you feel that the title is not correct, feel free to change it. If you don't think strong communication is a good file, folder, label for that list, you can go ahead and change it as a group. And then each member of the group is going to be filling out 3 sticky notes, and you should have stacks of sticky notes on each of your tables. And you're going to start talking about what are some of the obstacles that we might encounter that keep us from making this new reality happen. And so you're going to write things, like as an example for this one. Thank you. The children have a taste for healthy foods. What are some obstacles that might keep us from achieving this goal? Well, kids need repeated exposure to healthy foods. And so, if we turn it over.
Television.
On one of your blank flip chart pads that you guys all have, you'll start putting your responses. You'll just write them on your sticky and slap them on there. They need to have healthy choices. So everyone's going to fill out 3 obstacles on a sticky note. You're going to stick them on your poster, and then as a group, you can start clustering those into things that are related and make sense. So once you have your clusters, you can give those a title. So maybe it's just kids need more choices. Once you have a list of all the obstacles that your group comes up with on your sticky notes that keep you from achieving this new reality, then as a group, you guys are going to work through, well, what are some ways to overcome those obstacles? What are some steps that we can take as a county that help to overcome those? You know, if parents can't afford food, well, maybe we have more programs that assist parents. Maybe there's more voucher programs or whatever. But we're really hoping to use this time together in our small groups to start coming up with some steps that are things that we can really tackle here in Siskiyou, knowing that some things can happen in 90 days, and maybe some of the things on your list are things that you feel you can tackle in 9 months, or 12 months, or 2 years. But this is a great spot for us to at least start having these conversations and see what we come up with. On everyone's table, you will see the instructions for the activity in case I didn't make any sense. Or flag me down and I'll come over to your table and help you out. But there should be about 2 copies of the instructions per table. And on it, it'll tell you about how many minutes each portion should take. And then at 2:30, we're hoping that the groups can just walk us all through their process. What were some of the boundaries or obstacles that you came up with? And what are some of the action steps that you guys came up with, something that's creative that might help solve some of these problems and share with the group. Clear as mud?
Question, so these things here, are they we're gonna write on these, we're gonna turn something in with these, or are these just to start us and we're gonna work on another thing over here?
The posters that you have are just to get you started. So we've already clustered responses that were related and given that entire grouping a title. So that's your starting point. That is, I'm gonna borrow your sheet. On this sheet, that's the light bulb. These are the ideas, what this could look like in place. So as a group, you're gonna jump in now and start talking about, well, what are some of the obstacles towards overcoming whatever the title is on your poster? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so we're going to get started, and like I said, just flag me down. I'll be wandering around. Folks from the foundation, would you raise your hands? You can ask any of these folks if you have questions, they can help get you unstuck. Okay, so we're going to try and have everything ready to present by 2:30 as individual groups. Okay? All right, let's go.
There's one that's doing really well. It's kind of understand why they're not clicking for like their own devices. Real estate for well
And for some of you guys start talking about timelines. Is there any of these actions that we came up with that might be doable in 90 days? In 90 days, we feel that our community could start working towards this. Or maybe there's some items you came up with that might be ready in 6 months or on year 2. So those are the kinds of things we're hoping you can share. And we are going to start with our first group, which is, what was it? Resources accessible to all. And I was thinking that we could use this open space on this end of the room, and feel free to stand up or move. You've been sitting for a while. Yes.
Are you going to be emailing these to us later?
Yes, I'm going to share out the notes from this gathering, and then we're also going to have all of these posters are being filmed. And so those are going to be made available. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the gathering and how you can access all the information that was presented today and share it with others. Good? All right, so we're going to hear from our first group, and then we'll just see who wants to go next from there. Do you want a microphone? Do you want some help holding?
Need another board? You want to put this board up? Yeah.
That'd be great.
Borrow this.
Bring it back.
That's my butt.
Well, I want to get rid of this real quick anyway.
There you go.
Resources accessible to all.
Nice.
Take a microphone or be all right.
Be good? Can you guys hear in the back?
Yeah.
We'll steal it. All right. So what we're trying to accomplish on this was I didn't talk about it. For accessible by all, we're kind of aiming at schools, senior centers, things of that nature, trying to, at least, we have so many schools that are all doing the same thing every day. Each school has cafeteria staff. They're all doing breakfast. They're all doing lunch. They're all doing administrative reviews every 3 years for the state. We're all doing the same thing over and over again. Sometimes 4 or 5 blocks apart. We're all doing the same stuff. It never has made any sense to me. I come from restaurant business, not school. So that was kind of where I was aiming at, and our crew was obliged to kind of follow along. They have some fantastic ideas, but identifying the groups of people that may need this type of service, whether it's schools, VAs, senior centers, and we're talking to food, of course, at this time, but there's also so many other needs that we can find out when we go out to the campus and talk to people. Whether they need firewood, whether they need people to take care of brush piles, things. There's all kinds of things that happen out there that we don't know until we actually go ask someone. And a lot of folks won't come and ask you. They're embarrassed, or it's something that's not in their nature. I know I have parents and grandmothers and such that would not ask for anything. So I understand that a lot. Social services, needing information, and that kind of goes along with the canvas, getting out there, focus groups to find out what is necessary and needed out in the community. I'm trying to get over the stigma of being embarrassed. trying to come up with an idea so that it's not a handout. Maybe nutritional based instead of needs based. I know when my kids would go to Rayleigh's, just for instance, they started serving fruit up front, free fruit. My kids always want to go to the bakery and get a cookie. I said, no, you can have a piece of fruit. They said, about the first 2 times. Third time with his dad, can I get a banana? That was it, that's all it took. So there's little things that go on out in the community that can work on a larger scale. So the nutrition end of it, I felt great that they were getting a banana instead of eating a cookie. And they were still chewing on something, so it kept them entertained. And Dad keep shopping. Community flyers, this was a great one, I really enjoyed this one, because we also could get the schools involved. Those folks that are not digitally capable, don't have computers, don't like computers, a school paper or a community flyer that the school does for you each week going out. That way it's not, well, if you don't have a text or you don't get your email, you're not going to know what's happening out there. That's something that the school can get involved with and probably do free of charge as part of their, whether it's scrapbook or yearbook. We also went into decentralized location, which is what I was talking about, where everybody's doing the same thing in different locations. Why don't we have a very large facility that does all of Wairika, Montague, Grenada, Gazelle, Mount Shasta, Dunsmuir, in one hub? It's all the same food, just in one place instead of 6 or 7. That, of course, leads you into the transportation problem. But with one location, we're delivering a lot of food at one location instead of 7 or 8. We're getting better pricing. We're getting better quality. And then we can also do a better job with the quality of the food that leaves the kitchen. If you get a chance to ever go into places and eat food, they're all different, and some of them are not great. I'd like to fix that problem. We do a pretty good job. We have a salad bar every day, 14 items on our salad bar. So it's nice to see the kids eat fresh produce and all these things that they don't get to see. Yesterday we did jicama. I had half of the school that said, what in the world is that? So I had jicama sitting up there whole, and that jicama that we did lime juice and a little cayenne pepper, and they had no idea what that big old potato looking thing was. Also, the state inspects all of these schools. They have someone that comes up and does every single school. If we had one location, it'd be one inspection, not 8. That's a big savings in another area. You're going to have a lot of people squawk. That's where this came through, the breaking through old habits, because we don't need a cafeteria worker that's been there 20 years at each school. We have a centralized location that there's a certain number of people working there, and we're going to be saving some money on salaries, of course, but we can also work towards redirecting and retraining, whether they work at the new facility or if we find a different path that they'd like to do. People wanting to change, of course, and stuff. That's where I was coming up with. When I first started in the cafeteria, they wouldn't even move where the spoon was laid down during lunchtime. That was a big change. How come the spoon's on the left side and not the right? I said, I'm left-handed. Oh, well, we like it over here. And that's the way a lot of people think about their jobs all the time. This is change. I don't want any change. This is great. I've been doing this 20 years and this works. Well, there's other ways to do things. So I'd like to see some changes in those. Stop duplicating the same work. That's what I'm talking about with all these different schools, because we're fixing mainly the same things. We are mandated to have a certain number of calories, certain products out all the time, amount of cholesterol, sodium, and calories. So we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, but we're all doing it in a different way. Funding, of course, always comes down to funding in just about anything we do. We just said get more funding. But the schools all get paid for meals. So we all get paid for all these kids that are coming and eating. It's per person, it's not per facility. So we'd still be getting money for the students. And then we would be able to hopefully retrain. We'd have a lot of reduction in salaries at each facility. We'd have one spot that would have more, because of course we need more people to produce. but we're not looking at as many individual salaries as we have right now by any means. A group can do a lot more than 7 little groups out there. Fundraising, we were talking about doing periodic meetings, so coming back, all the stakeholders coming back into one spot, talking it over, saying, okay, this worked, this didn't, this worked. Holy moly, what were you thinking? All those things that come up when you start a new project, but everyone's staying connected instead of, as it is right now, very dispersed. Even schools in the same town don't talk to each other about, do you have any extra 4-ounce juices? Do you have? No, that doesn't go on very often. And it's something that, coming from the industry, I see can make a big change. And now kids, which is what we're all working on, get fed. There I am.
Thank you. Which group would like to go next?
We have lots of signage. Sure.
Are we up?
You want to? Sure. We can take this one too, because it's got 2. No, it's in all. That's
So the vision of the future that our group kind of tackled was to have a thriving local food culture. And so we were looking at the different things that particularly come up in preventing the local food culture from expanding. Our focus was quite often on community gardening. It's one of the things that came up a lot in the suggestions. And so we were looking at the obstacles that would come up and prevent a community garden or a community from really growing their own food and taking advantage of as much productivity as they could. And so some of the main obstacles that we came up with were education, community, and money. For education, it's a matter of overcoming people's lack of education or their miseducation about how difficult gardening is, about indifference to the benefits of gardening, to an opposition to change, to knowledge of where food comes from and what that knowledge is getting lost in generations, a mistrust of farmers markets or of homegrown produce as not being as safe. Like Mike mentioned earlier, some of his clients have concerns about whether or not the food that comes from these sources is going to be healthy. And some people just need to have more knowledge and support to be able to take on this new activity. Money, which is always a giant issue for everything that gets done, particularly the cost of developing a new garden, the time to actually put in and develop your own garden, and the idea that it's too much of a bother because food is so cheap. And then community, the lack of a strong community, the political opposition to the idea of community gardens, not knowing who in the community to turn to, the accessibility of gardens. Not everyone has the ability to handle the physical work of gardening, and how do we make a community garden more accessible to everyone within the community. And government doesn't know to talk to the local experts, so ideas that are things that are rules and regulations that happen from a larger level don't actually talk to the people kind of down on the ground. There were some other things that came up as well, city ordinances, government meddling, or homeowner associations, different groups that have regulations and restrictions so that people who actually have space where they could do a garden are not allowed to because of the particular rules about the community they live in. Or
lack of access to the necessary tools, equipment, and supplies, not only just to garden, but to deal with the produce and your abundance that you will be creating. So we talked a lot about education and motivation. It's one of the areas where we obviously spent a lot of time on. We talked about demonstration gardens and having cities and areas come up with demonstration gardens and preservation classes. Mixing people who have the knowledge with people who want to learn, so that you're not just relying on like 1 or 2 teachers, but you're allowing people within the community to take ownership of sharing the knowledge. So you're allowing people to learn from their neighbors and their friends. Providing additional incentives. So we all know that it's better to eat healthy vegetables, but the idea of coming up with, is that enough to get someone to overcome their inertia? So we're thinking maybe they could have citywide or countywide contests. So maybe a contest for one season, best beginner garden or most productive beginner garden, and actually get somebody to donate the money to put behind it. People might not be as motivated to start their own garden, but if they knew there was a $500 prize for the best beginner garden that year, how many more people would devote the time and energy? Community events in garden areas. So if we have community garden areas that are for a larger audience, not just personal plots, you could have a great evening events where you actually cook things with the food and then show off how great the garden is and get more people involved and feed the community with the food from it. Present statistics and research on the benefits, the health benefits, all the different benefits of gardening. Really try and get out there and talk to people not from a neighborly perspective about how much better this is. Have teach-ins. Do countywide fun challenges. Create an abundance to share, because once people see that there is an abundance that is possible, they're more inclined to get involved and join in. And train community motivators, so that it's not just the original few people who are talking about how great gardening is, but that people in the community reach out and bring more people in and spread the knowledge that way. Money, we moved over to our money areas. Money is really hard. But a campaign showing the cost, the retail cost of the produce that you would normally buy versus the cost of actually growing your own, so people can really get this idea of whether or not it's cost effective, whether or not it's worth their time, analyzing what their garden income might be versus what they would earn at a wage job for doing the same amount. Your garden income being how much money you wouldn't have to spend on produce because of the produce that you grow. Scale up gardens. Have cooperative gardens or gardening events. Large efforts to reduce the costs of the individual items so that you're not each person we're not duplicating the same work, kind of like in the schools, so that you don't each have to pay the same things. Tool sharing and seed libraries and local starts. Grants and community dollars. There are different things that we could do to raise money for these type of projects. And to build community to make it more palatable. Celebrate success stories. Find ways within the community, find ways within your organization to really point out things that have gone well, people who have built gardens, people who are eating delicious food from gardens that they have done themselves. If you set a high goal for the community, kind of like we set this high goal for the community in even being here, like we're going to solve hunger, it ties everybody's personal success to the community's success and gets everybody more invested. Have community-free harvest spots, opportunities to participate in gardens at many levels. So perhaps there's a need for people to eat more produce. So you have a large community garden that people can come and get produce from without putting in the effort themselves, but you give them opportunities to volunteer and make it successful. And berry patches. Put berry patches everywhere. Did I miss anything? No. Okay.
We're stuck getting off of these things. There you go. Oh, that's a good part of the junction. Okay, all right. Okay, so our group discussed having highly organized nutrition education. I don't think it's on this one. Can you? So the most important thing was we wanted to make sure that this nutrition education was accessible to everybody. So a couple of there's a lot of things to read here, and I just found out I only have 3 minutes. So we'll just go to how we want to address some of these things. So information comes in all sorts of ways. So we have perspectives on, so individual perspectives is loneliness, you know, like cooking for one if you're a single person or a senior. So one member of our team suggested maybe we have cooking classes not only for children or adolescents, but also for seniors who, you know, there are a lot of people that never learned how to cook. And so also community leadership buy-in. So mayors, you know, leaders in business or service groups. And we also need to make sure that people are motivated, that we need to somehow get them motivated to eat better and to just learn about nutrition. From the social perspective, one of the bullet points here was mandated cooking classes and budgeting courses for CalFresh participants. This can help obtain and sustain food security. Well, we thought that maybe that would stigmatize the group that had to be separated out because they were CalFresh recipients. So we thought California schools, or maybe Siskiyou County schools in this case, should require cooking classes and budgeting for all students. Just because they're not particularly low income doesn't mean they know how to do all that stuff automatically. So, and then it would be something that they were all participating in together. See, there's been a lot of crossover in our groups, right? So, and then some people just aren't interested. So we just need to have crucial conversations with them about the value of being interested in eating better, you know, better feeling, better health. And also we thought something that would cross over for both is a lack of good role models. So we would like to, we have one team member that wanted to start a Clint Loves Kale campaign and get Clint Eastwood involved since he's a baker. So I think that would be great. We should have bumper stickers and everything. So yeah, so in planning, we need to make sure we identify our target populations for that. And so some of these are mentioned here. For teaching nutrition, we need to identify information networks. So there's word of mouth, announcements, public events, city council meetings, neighborhood watch, and of course social media. Make sure there's plenty of information available. And I think we are all stakeholders in that. Everybody that's here is interested in that information. So we can all help share it as well. I was thinking about community events like the fair or any street fair. It seems like most of the food that's there is not good for you. So we were thinking it might be, and that's a treat for people to have to wait, you know, all year until this one event happens, and then they can eat, you know, deep fried Twinkies or whatever. So we need to come and see some of our community leaders about maybe changing that whole perspective. And where's my other? Here we go. So in 90 days, we thought we could contact and go visit. Actually, I just kind of did this last week. Talked to the mayor of Weed and talked about the importance of getting support from the city level about supporting the efforts to feed kids, no matter if it's our organization or Great Northern School Program, whatever. And then also our Board of Supervisors president right there, chairman right now is a former cook. So he would be, of course, interested in maybe speaking up for good food. And so we need those kind of positive messages. Okay, so that's all I need. And maybe at all community gatherings, we could have, like good food, like our centerpieces are just amazing today with all the delicious, beautiful food. Food is beautiful. So we just need to make sure that we make healthy eating, tasting experiences, make them fun. We even thought about food art, maybe getting kids involved with that. They love to create stuff. We thought about making some TV spots on SMC, of course, and with commodities, things that they get in their commodities boxes, maybe some of our pantry offerings, tailgate produce recipes, and we can display those on social media, websites that we may share, have links toward each other. Cooking cook-off shows. Were we talking about live cook-off shows or just on
Fun activity, like as a way to be educational and entertaining at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We're talking about Top Junior and how well some of those kids cook. Okay. And then mentoring, maybe mixing seniors and children together to volunteer in food programs together and to teach them, have the older ones teach the younger ones how they cook and get the most out of their food opportunities. And so we talked about Clint Eastwood and just celebrity clubs. Anybody that you know is a celebrity or community leader, just encourage them to always be giving positive messages. So, and then I think Jeff mentioned community access kitchen would be great. We could gather on a regular basis and just have fun and make good food together. That's all I got.
All right, which group wants to go next? Did everyone jump up? How about this team over here? You guys ready? Do you want to stay over? Doesn't matter. So you want to just be at your chair? Does that work?
Yeah. So we had strong partnerships and countywide collaborations. Okay, so the three obstacles that we came up with was lack of leadership per se, and then we came up with duplication of efforts, and then last but not least one was, communication. We had a bunch of resources and how we get the information out. So those were our obstacles. And so when we started discussing, we discussed if we could develop a committee, which Michelle has kind of already done with a lot of the stakeholders in this community who facilitate a lot of great things. So we were saying that maybe we could identify additional stakeholders that maybe need to come to the table and help us not duplicate so many efforts within the county since so many people are doing great things. So we talked a little bit about some of those things we could do. That committee would be tasked to identifying and prioritizing what the community needs are. We would focus maybe at first on the food insecurity in our county since that is such a big issue. We talked about identifying the resources we currently have and then identifying the resources we do not have. And then that committee could then go through a lot of the topics you guys are talking about today. We felt that having a yearly summit like this would bring in other additional stakeholders that might be in the community we don't know. It would be great. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and say we did talk about communication being an issue and maybe everyone being aware of what's available. So maybe developing like a web page or something that, and just making sure that's public so everyone does know what resources are available in the county as well. And then that's all great, and we
can talk and we can do a lot of things, but if we don't have buy-in for the county and the board of supervisors that this is an issue in our area, we feel like we're not going to make a lot of headway. So as a committee, you can filter things up to those who make the decisions and help support.
Okay, or not, or you can say that.
Is that okay?
You're okay. You've got all the windows plastered. I don't think we can get all that up there.
Over there. So we had communication, so it ties into a lot what was just mentioned. And our title is Strong Communication, and we decided to kind of rename about collaborative communication. We did like the name Strong, but we were, how do we link all these organizations together and be aware of all the resources? So some of the challenges that we identified was funding, awareness, having kind of the shared common vision with all of us coming together, personnel expertise, knowledge of all the different resources that are available. Just again, the distance and geographic of our county can sometimes be challenging, and transportation. And so kind of our actions, I'm going to step over here so you can see. Feel free, group, to jump in anytime. Feel free. Actions, kind of a county list, food directory, the kind of building, we do have lots of different directories. Fairchild has created a different one, but how, you know, the challenge is also it's fluid. It's always changing, and each community has different access points. And Alex brought up, wouldn't it be great to really go into the communities? And some communities I'm going to use like Rodriga, Michelle, like, you know, what church does one day, this organization does another. How do we maybe come together and have one centralized point that serves everyone, so everyone knows where to go? It doesn't matter what day, that we know that's where there's good access. A community website and calendar, you know, centralized where we, that one point that contains all the information. Definitely more events like this, pulling us together. Develop a group of volunteers for delivering products. Don't mind misspellings, by the way. Just sound things out and we'll get there. Grants, funding. Hiring a marketing person. So I'm going to pick on Fairchild again, but what's hard is that we're all very small organizations. We know we need to be doing marketing. We need that newsletter, but guess what? There's not time to make it happen. And so Fairchild, you know, they've gotten bigger. She already mentioned how many staff now. It's grown. And they pulled on a new staff person. And I don't know if you noticed, if you haven't liked their Facebook, they're on Instagram, they got Sophia on the radio, they're doing a great job of getting out there. Where I'm not a marketer, right? I want to. I'm afraid to get on the Facebook now because I misspell everything. But so when we have people that are experts in marketing and know how to really communicate with our population, that reach is huge. Are you laughing over there, Sophie?
Alex was looking at
me. More community meetings, just like, you know, with the group. And then also, how do we be strategic about these meetings? Because again, we have limited funding, limited time, but how do we maximize the time we're coming together so we are aware? Because the conversation at the table with Alex is like, Heather, I didn't know you had all those programs there. We've been collaborating on many different levels. So again, how do we have a true understanding of the services that are being provided? And then we have 211, which is basically you can pick up the phone, dial 211, or First Five, we're talking about a system called Help Me Grow. But how do we have a centralized access point telephone where you can pick up, and whether it's even related to food, weatherization, if you need a service, where can we go so we can figure it out so that it's easy? Looking at the steps, I get one over there, creating, the admin group, and then the centralized food agency. So we came up with our own acronym, what can we start doing in 90 days? But kind of building off maybe of a committee, but create kind of an admin team of different organizations, staff people, and even just the community to come together and start pulling together. Because ideally, yes, we go after grants and we can have someone lead the efforts, but we got to start now to get there. So we started listing different kind of agencies and people who were here. So if you see your organization up there, we already volunteered you. And there's some missing. So I started with one of mine, the SNAP-Ed, looking at, you know what, we can't always provide food. We're a nutrition grant, and it always kills me. We can provide a taste testing, but I can't provide food for everyone to eat. But I can provide staff time.
I can provide expertise. I've got lots of cookbooks. So if we kind of can come together with everyone, what can we bring to the table, or what is our passion, what is our expertise? A new one is ARP. If you're a nonprofit, we can be partnering, and they can provide admin time, data entry. The resource centers, they're a great linking and connection to generally our target population. And they're, food distribution and networking, and what else I had up there. And also, someone mentioned up here, a lot of times when we connect with people, we start with food, but then we realize, they need a lot of other services as well. And that's the nice thing with Great Northern and the resource centers is it's kind of that gateway. Because if we're just focusing on food, we may fix that problem, but a lot of times there's other things. So going back to how do we create a healthier community, the resource centers, Great Northern, they help create that avenue. Having churches where they can be providing transportation, food distribution, and volunteers. And what I like about churches, I also just like the thought. I like that thought of community, that we're here to take care of each other, no strings attached. We are all one, and we all just pitch in to make things better. Looking at the stage, we heard about FedEx. We have stage that's local, that they go through a lot of different, or go to a lot of different parts of our community. Service clubs, definitely schools, where they can do transportation, volunteers. We talked about where we have volunteers that come in. They can be help growing the food. They can be help preparing the food, and then teaching them. I know I'm probably going over my time, but grocery stores. Some of the food that's here is linked with the grocery stores. I connected with Rayleigh's to see if they would come. And what was even neat, they talked about they're reevaluating their brands. They're not producing soda anymore because they looked at the nutrient analysis, they looked at the current research and said, you know what? As a business, we're not going to produce something that's maybe contributing to people battling chronic disease. Grocery Outlet in Wairika, they said they just had the community donate $18,000 worth of food. And so Becky was down at their corporate office, and they said, how can you be doing that in a rural community? So they're a huge business partner because they support a lot of our activities. Hospitals and clinics, they're large touch points. Again, sometimes different organizations have access to different funds. And the thing with the hospitals and clinics is you also have, authority may not be the right word, but if you think of physicians and our nurses and our medical providers, people listen to them. They value their opinion. And so a lot of times we go to them for medical, but if they're talking about our social services and saying, you know what, you have struggling, go to the food bank, go to the resource center, they're going to listen. First Five, there's already kind of, we have a marketing kind of system in place. We're hoping to build more. We have a monthly calendar, so we can be building on that. Definitely businesses to do that supplemental funding. And human services, we have our government programs where they have access to data. They have access, again, to large touch points and to be part of that team. And I bet you that we could fill up a couple more pages of the different stuff, but I will probably cut out of time. And then Cindy added her name up there. She media too, because again, highlighting the great work and even thanking the businesses and all of that they're a huge piece that sometimes don't always get up there right away. So, anything else to add, group? Okay.
And now here's Courtney. I'm a librarian, so I don't have to talk in front of people. Okay, so our topic was initially called large investment in youth and schools. And a couple of those words written us out because we thought they would freak other people out, like large investment. So we thought we would call ourselves planting the seeds of health in our youth. So the future, as was brought together by our members here, we're having things like salad bars at schools, supper programs at after-school programs, having a school kitchen at the Mount Shasta Public Schools, after-school programs involving parents, students, and the community in providing healthy food, healthy meals for distribution.
education around healthy food. So that's the vision. Now what's standing in the way? Well, just like many of you have mentioned, money, funding, it seems to be the number one thing for all of us here. The other thing that we noticed is sort of a lack of engagement. So for example, I guess there's no such thing as home ec anymore. Nobody has a cooking class. So just that fundamental knowledge about feeding yourself, we don't even have that. So making decisions, making choices, if you don't have the information, you can't even do that. Another thing that we talked about was food shaming being an obstacle. Like, you're eating that.
Or you're picky.
You're picky, you're questioning what my mom gave me to eat, issues like that. And then we also, just the way many of you have also said, we don't know what anyone's doing. I've been talking with Heather for a long time. I had no idea how many things were going on. So we feel like there's a lack of coordination and collaboration among all the organizations. Getting the information out, having one website that serves the county that gives everybody information. I'm the librarian. I tried to put together a packet to have at the front desk of all the resources available, and I couldn't find one. I wasn't sure who all the groups were doing things in the community, so that's a stumbling block. The other thing is we thought that the consciousness around food. We all come with our own consciousness about food, and maybe Fritos are the food of choice at my house, and maybe sweet potatoes are at your house, and the thought that there might be something different or something better, maybe that's not there. So some of our thoughts about how to go forward are, God, we would love to have home ec back in school. There is an effort to have a school kitchen put in the system, so we're working on that. The other thing in the money part was Mount Shasta is a boomer community, not so much a youth community. So how do we get the people who are retired, who maybe sold their house in the Bay and moved up here, how do we get them to want to invest in healthy food for youth?
AARP.
Well, we had a really good solution here. We want our kids to eat well so that when we're old, they're going to take care of us. We don't want them being sicker than us. So some of our ideas were, teaching about choices, food economics classes, like is it really cheaper to buy a packaged food item like a Lunchable? And break it down if I bought a hunk of cheese, if I bought a big roll of salami, whatever, a big box of crackers, that's cheaper. If I bought some microwavable dinner that was really actually bad for me, what is my health cost going to be as an adult? We talked about having school as a food distribution center for a whole family because youth are not isolated, they're part of the family. One of the things we said we could do quickly, in the next 90 days, is changing what snacks we offer at programs. So for example, at the library, when I started working there, I will only serve organic snacks at the library. So if you come for movie night, it's organic popcorn, organic iced tea, and organic lemonade, and water. We talked about maybe having seniors mentor the youth. So my grandma cooked really good food. That got lost somewhere between my grandma and me. So maybe we partnered up together. And we thought that maybe if we had the young people cook for the older people, that would give them buy-in, the older people buy-in, like, oh, I don't have to cook tonight. The high school kids are going to cook some healthy food for me. And then, of course, policy change, depoliticizing food. There's a lot of politics surrounding food. Another short-term thing we're thinking about that we could do soon is show food films at the library, just to educate people. Or have presentations, we could do that at the library also. We did mention Clint Eastwood, but we did talk about having, celebrity chefs or something like that come up and give us a hand. So, anything else?
Okay. You gotta go up there.
All right, what a great, oh my gosh, there's so many amazing lists in the room. You guys should all give yourselves a hand. This was some hard work, especially after eating Mexican food, sitting around. So good job. And I'm going to push just a little bit further before I turn it over to Tabitha to kind of wrap us up and ask, is there anyone that heard something here today that you think, yeah, my community is ready for that. In the next 90 days, we could take a first step towards maybe making that happen. Did anything come out for anybody in the room that was shared? Denise?
Just having a coalition amongst us, planning to, just having a coalition amongst us, and I think a few different people mentioned it, and meeting on a regular basis. I don't know if annually I don't think that's enough, but maybe quarterly.
Is there anyone in the room that would be interested in maybe starting to put a group together to talk about that?
I would.
Paula, anyone interested in working with Paula on what first steps could look like?
Well, I wanted to just share something that I shared with this table, and I know that there's already groups that are working towards this. There's people at this table that are working towards, building bigger networks and so forth, but I came here wanting to share a couple statistics because I do some grant writing, and I like the 90-day concept of taking action, because personally I feel like we have almost an emergency situation in Siskiyou County. And we've talked a lot about statistics today pertaining to seniors and certain things, but we haven't really talked about the one thing that's kind of the elephant in the room, which is if you go to feedingamerica.org, they have what's called Map the Meal Gap, and it's a map of the United States, and it's broken down into levels of food insecurity. And I have some copies if people are interested. Siskiyou County has the worst food insecurity problem on the entire West Coast. On the entire West Coast. We have the second highest child food insecurity rate in California. And we have, and I shared this with this group, so they're hearing it for the second time or third time, but there's a statistic that refers to low income and low access combined with high food prices. And what I shared with the group is that I read grants, so I have to put all these numbers in, so I have them in my head, but Mississippi has a rate of about 28% of their residents struggle with low income, low access, and high food prices. Our rate here in Siskiyou County is 31%. So we're higher than the worst state in the nation. We have a higher rate. So I like the 90-day, feeling of just getting started and doing something now. And everybody's here to do that, but I think it's more pressing than anybody in this room really realizes. We're sitting here in Mount Shasta. Our kids can't hardly qualify for school lunches because we're doing pretty well here in Mount Shasta. I live here, we don't worry about food for the most part. There are families here that do, but we have families in Half Camp, we have families in Tule Lake. A lot of those families are not taking advantage of SNAP because they are afraid for various reasons. They just can't get to it, or they're just afraid of being identified. So I see it as an emergency, and I really like the 90-day pressure point. So whatever I can do to help, I work with a lot of different agencies in Siskiyou County, so I know a lot of people. I know of resources. Cindy also is really connected to the community. We've known each other a long time. So between the two of us, we probably know everyone. So I'm just operating on my knowledge of who's who, and also I do a lot of social media and marketing, and so if I can help spread the word as far as this getting going, I'd like to offer my help with that. So if anybody wants to, we can share business cards and talk about that as we leave this meeting. So.
Okay, so I am going to provide Paula with a gift card for a restaurant for your next meeting. So if you want to have lunch with Paula and talk more about what this could look like in 90 days, come find Paula after our gathering here in a few minutes, and I'm sure you'll come up with something. Yeah, we'll share that.
I got some here that'll help me come up with it. So.
Maybe one more. Any other actions in 90 days that anyone in the group feels is doable and wants to maybe?
What I'm thinking of is we've each shared various things that work in our communities. And so I'm looking at it from my standpoint, and Dunsmuir and Alex and Michelle and everybody, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint of saying, okay, we just did something, and this is the product we came out with, and this is the agenda we used, and this is the approach we took. And if somebody wanted to do something else for a garden thing that they're doing, each of these could be something that could be written up as a paper within 90 days and then collected so that other people could use it as a resource if they want to try it in their community.
Yeah, that sounds great. You want to?
Yeah, can we share emails and information? Can you get that out to all of us?
Yes, if everyone in the group is okay with us sharing contact information with all those that attended today, yeah, we'll send that all out along with the follow-up evaluation and notes, so.
And so the follow-up on that from our standpoint, for instance, would be a copy of the list of providers that Alex came up with the idea in mind that you can all take it in your own community and say, do I have one, don't I, who's this and who's that? So that's an example of something that we could share on that email list that she brought up.
I like it, yeah. Do you want, is that something you want to start?
I'll work with them since they're there, so.
Okay, well then I will leave a gift card for you and your team also. Anything else? Yeah?
I have a question. Do you have anyone who's going to sort of take all this information and organize it and put it in the computer so that it could be available as one cohesive type thing?
That is something that I would need help with. I would be looking for someone. Paula is gonna.
This will also, this presentation will be available on YouTube. So you can access it at any, after this week it'll be available. I'll send a link to everybody after the email addresses. You'll be able to have access to this within this week.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, and there was a question about having a community calendar of food distribution. I think we probably could take that on easily and add it to our list.
A community calendar of food distribution.
Nice.
Northern would take that on. All right, hear from Marie.
All right.
All right. All right, I'm just going to turn to Tabitha and she's going to close us out.
Where are you going?
Wow, everyone, thank you all. There was a lot of energy and passion in this room today. It was really nice to have that. Bruce mentioned at lunch how nice it is to have just a group of people who are just interested in helping and moving along this focus. So thank you all for being here, for giving up your Saturday to come and experience this. I'd like to also have a big round of applause for Crystal Aston. And thank you, Crystal, and thank you for it. It was excellent. I would like to invite you at this time to text family and friends and let them know we're going to be having a community party out here at the park, continuing on until 5 o'clock. We will have music, live music from Sound Advice. There's going to be ice cream out there. Right here. And family and friends are more than welcome to join us for this event. Thank you to our working team, Alex and Heather and Michelle. It was great. So we appreciate you all being here. Look forward to moving this forward.
First, I want to give a thank you to Cindy and Siskiyou Media. Thank you. Marika, Research Center for Spike, Siskiyou Childcare, thank you very much. That's always nice to have that available. And the produce and stuff on the tables. So don't forget to take your stuff or interest, or if you know someone who could benefit from it. So we have baggies, correct, if needed. So please, don't be fighting on the line over there. Or we have shooting to me. So, and again, thank you guys very much for coming. We appreciate it.
I'm sorry, one more thing. Don't forget to visit all of the tables around the room, gather resources, and check out everyone's information.
Can I say something too? I know I keep saying about AARP, but if you guys want good
Us older people are pretty good. So there's a whole bunch of us out there, ARP people, so the work they pay, it's all free to you guys. Take advantage of it.
All right.